This podcast is part of the Everyday Heroes Podcast Network, the network for first responders and those who support them.
Disclaimer. All views expressed on What Makes Us Fire are solely those of the person or persons giving them. What Makes Us Fire does not represent or claim to represent any particular city or fire department, and therefore make the claim that all views and standpoints are affiliated with What Makes Us Fire and with What Makes Us Fire only. Any mention of certain fire departments or cities within the interviews are solely for informational and opinion-based dialogue. In short, if you have a problem with what's published, just say something about it and don't be a Richard. What Makes Us Fire family, this is Josh, your host of the What Makes Us Fire podcast, founder of the What Makes Us Fire nonprofit foundation. Today on the show, we have a very special guest. His name is Tyler. Many of you might not actually know him by that name because on his social media accounts, he doesn't go by Tyler. As a matter of fact, he actually made a lot of his social media accounts to share a part of his life that's actually not him. His canine Arlo. That's how he's known on social media, on TikTok, and on Instagram, where he shares him and his dog's journey through the job. Now, they're no longer working, and I'm going to let him tell the story as to how that came about. It's a pretty intense story, and how it made him feel, and how he worked through that, and the process he's taking to get through it all is pretty amazing. So without further ado, without saying too much else, here's, yes, I know he's a cop, was a cop, is a cop, you know, whatever, cops. Here's Tyler, and Arlo. Kidding. Help me welcome Tyler, everybody.
You're running for what?
Sheriff.
Oh, sweet. Well, here's your chance to look really, really cool and or a complete asshole and nobody votes for you. I have a feeling, though. With Arlo at your side, you have a pretty damn good chance.
So, oh, yeah. We'll see. There's a lot of naysayers, but it's all right.
Man, there's always naysayers in any type of election, bro. You will notice the haters more than you'll notice the supporters until it's time for you to actually see the difference in rating.
100%.
All right, Tyler. Brother, I want to say first, thank you for coming on the What Makes Us Fire podcast. What I like to do, usually the way I come and introduce people here on the podcast, I let them know how I got them onto the podcast, let them know how I got them on the show, how I met you, all that other fun stuff. And then we dive into a little bit of your history. But first, like I said, how I met you. I don't know who the fuck you are.
Yeah.
I'm just going to call it like I see it, right?
Yep.
And you don't know who the fuck I am. Really?
Nope.
I think the only thing that... Yeah, well, just a fucking donut eater. Really, the only thing that we know about each other are, again, that, you know, you're a cop, I'm a firefighter. You know that I run this podcast, and you know you found out about the nonprofit, and the only reason we found out about all that about each other, or you found out about me, is through the social media site TikTok. Now, you have become kind of, I'm just gonna call it what it is, a little social media influencer on TikTok, right?
Yeah, sure.
Especially with Arlo, who, by the way, everybody listening, Arlo is his canine, is Tyler's canine. Tyler is the handler. Arlo's the one that actually does the work.
All the work. Eric does
all the work. And you've gotten a very large following, very large family of supporters with between you and Arlo. And you know, I watched some of your content, and I like it. You know, some of it's funny, some of it's training, some of it's, you know, it's basically giving a little bit of a background on a lot of what Arlo does, but when you look a little bit deeper into it and people can actually kind of see what's going on, they see what dedication you put into it as well, right?
Yeah.
And no, I get a lot of people aren't going to see that because all they see is a puppy and they're like, oh, puppy. But when you watch all these videos that you put out there, I'm seeing not only is this dog extremely smart, knows its job very well, but here's a handler here that has taken the time to make sure the job gets done completely well and the job gets done right. So I was watching all this, and then you jumped into a few of the lives that I have, and I was just like, bro, want to do a podcast? And you said, sure. We texted back and forth. I said, let me know a time. You said whenever. That doesn't help me. Literally, that's like cop timing, right? Hey,
Yeah,
cops, we need you here. When are you going to get here?
Whenever.
Okay,
Perfect.
thanks.
So yeah, it's pretty cool that I get, I appreciate being on here on What Makes Us Fire. Me and Canine Haynes, I don't know if you know Canine Haynes.
I do know Canine Haynes.
Me and him had a podcast for about 6 months, and we were literally working opposite schedules, and we just couldn't make it work because we had a YouTube, we had an Instagram, we had everything, and we had a pretty good following on it. I mean, it's just a cop podcast. I had a bunch of guests and stuff like that, so it's pretty cool to get back into it. I haven't done it since last year, so I do appreciate it. I think podcasts are amazing, and yeah, it's gonna be fun.
It is going to be fun, especially because I'm going to get to dog on you a little bit for you being a cop and everything. And there was no pun intended there because of Arlo. No, I get it. I'm glad you caught that, though. We have a little bit of a smart cop here, y'all.
Trying.
You're doing good, bro.
I had my donut this morning, so.
Uh-oh. He's going to get pissed. He's going to get hangry.
Yep.
So, I'm new to this podcast thing. I've only been doing it since August. My first episode went out on August 3rd.
That's good. I mean, that's almost a year. So, you know what you're doing.
Almost.
I mean, you're faking it, at least. Faking until you make it.
Hey, man. It has been all OJT, all on-the-job training for me. I had to learn about audio on my own. I had to learn about recording on my own. I can't tell you how many YouTube videos and articles I've read.
I will say your audio sounds amazing.
Oh, well, thank you. I have this soundboard somebody donated to me, and it's one of those old ones, but it sounds really good, and the microphone too. So I was blessed with somebody doing that. Anyway, squirrel moment. Just so you know who I am, again, I'm a hose dragger, I'm a firefighter in Southeast Texas, and everybody that's like, well, why is he telling Tyler who he is? Well, you guys, like I said, we don't know each other. This is our first time actually speaking, and I actually like guests coming on the show that I've never met before, that we haven't really had too much of a rapport. We're still getting to know each other because while I'm getting to know him, you are also getting to know him, and it makes it more authentic in my eyes. I'm not asking you questions that I already know the answer to, so I'm asking you questions that I'm genuinely interested in. These aren't rehearsed. These aren't like, okay, brother, so why don't we tell them about this? And it's like, I already know the answer. It's not really interesting. You can hear the excitement. You can feel the excitement when you're getting to know somebody and it's being recorded and it's going to be broadcast.
Yeah,
anyway, I've been a
100%.
firefighter for about 15 years, brother. I started the podcast, like I said, in August. I got into the podcast started off as just sharing stories about firefighters, cops, civil service members and their families, giving a voice to everybody within civil service, be it military, first responder, active, retired, volunteer, didn't matter. But it turned into a little bit something more than that because late last year, September of last year, depression hit me really, really hard, and I had an attempt on my life. I don't know if I can say it was an attempt. It was a very close attempt. We'll just call it that. Yeah. And, I had to shut it down a little bit. I got in my head quite a bit, and I started going to therapy, and I got on TikTok for the sole purpose of promoting the podcast, but I started noticing I got onto mental health talk, right? You know how they talk about, so I got on mental health talk and I started like watching these videos, and it actually made me it helped me. It helped me feel better about where I was, because even though my story wasn't actually theirs, there was some type of relevance, some type of connection that I was like, well, I'm not alone in this. So I asked my therapist, hey, would you think it'd be cool if I start sharing my story on social media? She said yes. And I was like, okay. And it started helping, started sharing my story. And then I was like, well, I have the podcast, and I had Jason Patton on from Fire Department Chronicles. Yeah. The bald head guy that makes all the funny videos.
Yep. Yeah. Oh, yeah. 100%. Yes.
Yeah. So he was on the podcast. He was the fourth episode on the podcast. He came on the podcast when I was brand freaking new. he showed support, and I was extremely grateful.
That's awesome.
But he talked about mental health a little bit, and I was like, you know what? Let me use this route, because if I'm having these kind of issues, I can't be the only one. Can't be the only one, right? Started doing the research, figured out I'm definitely not the only one. And so What Makes Us Fire became very much a mental health forward within the civil service and everything.
And I love it. And the one thing, side note, that pisses me off on social media, I won't say this because there's a lot of people that have mental health issues. I had mental health issues. I still do. But there's a lot of people on social media that use mental health as kind of a way to get views. And it pisses me off so bad because those people that use it for views don't realize of how much mental health hits you. This year has been really bad on me. Mm-hmm. And I went pretty downhill. And, seeing those people that use it, that's a side note. We'll get into it later.
Oh, well, we're definitely going to get into that because I have something to say about that. Those are the people that are making it harder for those of us that do want to speak up and speak out. They're the ones that are making it a lot more difficult for us to do that. I'm trying to fight that. I'm trying to be the stigma breaker, so to speak. Yeah. And so that's how it happened, man. That's how I started reaching out to civil service members. Why I reached out to you. And 100% honesty, and that's what I am. I'm all about honesty. You have over 2 million family members in the K9 on the K9 Arlo's social media site, right? Yep. And I would be lying to you. I would be completely lying to you if a little bit wasn't to help get the message out.
But that's just networking, though. I mean,
it's not even for me. It's not even networking, right? Because we can post this episode, and I don't care if not one of them donates to the nonprofit. Which, by the way, I have a nonprofit, by the way, and I don't care. But what is going to happen is people are going to be able to hear your story. Yeah, they're going to be able to relate to you in a better way. They'll be able to hear my story. And though our stories may be completely unique to ourselves, maybe they'll find some similarities in those stories and start the conversation for themselves. Yeah. Start the conversation so they can start getting better for themselves.
If you've seen our Instagram, and if you ask any of my followers, I'm an open book on my social media. I will tell them literally everything. They know literally, like, go on my Instagram and I'll post, a paragraph book, a whole book, and just talk about it. And because that's how I am. I'm very open. I've been open. I think that's why what made us popular is because I don't hide anything. I take them with vacations on me. Me and Vader, K9 Vader, who's my best friend, because of this app, we take them everywhere with us, and they feel part of our family, and they are part of our family. And, they know our spouses, they know our dogs, they know pretty much where we live and are part of our life. And that's what creators don't do. And I tell every creator that comes to me and asks for advice, like, how do I get more followers? How do I do this? How do I do that? It's like, they want to know you. They don't, at one point, yes, they care about the videos. You still have to have, decent content, but they want to know the person that's making it. They want to know who you are. They want to know everything about you. And that's what you got to do. You don't have to, but you should, because that's what will keep people to stay.
Exactly.
And, at a point in my life, I was losing about 5,000 followers a day. And I've gotten that back now. I'm now I make about 10 to 15,000 followers a day now on TikTok and Instagram. I think we're at 124,000 because they know me and they want to stay because they want to keep with my story. They're part of this family. They don't want to leave. Right. That's what I love. Every single one of them knows that they can contact me and I'll respond. I respond. TikTok's a different story. I receive a lot of messages on TikTok that I just can't. Mm-hmm. But on Instagram, if they message me, I message them right back.
I'm pretty much the same way. I also even put an email specifically for that out there, and, we say followers, because it's easier to say than friends and family, right? But the way I've always looked at it is these people that hit that little red follow button, they're not followers. They're not fans. They're family. And the reason why I say that is because when they do hit that button, they're telling you, Tyler, they're telling you what you put out there is worth their time.
Yep.
What story you're sharing, what information you're sharing, whatever it is worth their time. And time, they're never going to get that back. It's precious. And so because they're giving you that time, when I say you, I mean the general sense of the term, any creator that has any type of family on social media, they are giving you that time, telling you, I appreciate you. I appreciate what you're doing. I appreciate what you're saying. I'm giving you my time so I can listen to you. And to me, that is huge. They're considered family and friends at that point. And I'm like you, when it comes to other creators that come to me and ask that question, they're just like, well, what do I do? And I'm telling them, I'm just like, just keep sharing who you are. Do the content that makes you feel good. Don't do something because you think it's trendy or think it's cool if you don't like it or if you're uncomfortable. People are going to see that. They'll see right through it. They'll know that you just made it to make it, right? They if they don't believe it's truly you, they don't care.
Yep.
So I'm like you 100%. I'm going to move past this, and we will get back into this, especially towards the end, but obviously that's how we met. We met through social media. We met through TikTok, and I was very grateful that you jumped into, the live. I don't know how you heard about What Makes Us Fire. I'm glad you did. And I'm
honestly,
glad you did.
I know I heard it you from K9 Haynes, and I know he wants to get on it. He's a busy man right now. But so K9 Haynes is one of my best friends as well. He flew down here and walked to Washington. We live across country. He'll be a good one on here. He knows how to do the podcast stuff.
Oh, sweet. Yeah, I actually already asked him to be on the podcast. I'm just waiting for him to let me know. I'm actually going to be in Washington. I'll be in Seattle on the 10th.
Oh, yeah, I live just about 40 minutes from Seattle.
Oh, really?
Yep. So let me know.
Oh, yeah, I'll let you know. We're supposed to go fishing and stuff like that. We're fishing for first responders.
He contacted me a while back, actually.
Yeah, I think it was because he knows you're in the area and he knew that I was coming and he figured, well, maybe you and I can hook up, hang out.
Yeah, I'd be down. He's up north a little bit. But yeah, I'd be totally down.
Sweet. We'll make that happen. But moving forward, bro, I let everybody know how we met. We obviously we've already talked a lot. We scrolled off into this whole other conversation that we will be having and diving deeper into. But what I like to do is I like to give the audience a little bit of a background of who you are. And now when I say background, don't tell me I'm here, I do this, and here I'm at now. No, I want to know when baby Tyler, before he had hair growing in funny places, all the way up to kind of where you're at now.
Yeah.
Give us a sense of what your family life was like, what school life was like, just growing up in general.
Yeah. So, so I don't know if a lot of people probably know. I grew up in Portland, Oregon for most of my life until high school. I had a great childhood, to be honest, till my preteen years. I went to private Catholic school, kindergarten through eighth grade, and wore a uniform every single day. Same 30 kids that we went to the same grade throughout the same year. My mom was in nursing school most of my life. I remember anyway. But when I was about 10 years old, she got breast cancer. She was already, I think stage 4. When I was 12, she finally passed away. My dad had a construction business. He retired when he was like 40 years old. And so when my mom died, they were divorced before she died. Before she got cancer, they got divorced, but he went through a hard time. He took her back home, bought her, hired a full-time nurse at our house and made her as comfortable as possible. When she died, it hit him pretty hard. He started getting into drugs. And when I was 15 years old, he actually died. He was shot by cops, actually, which was his fault. And I had no hard feelings for the cops. I didn't understand why it happened, but I do now. And that's what actually, when I never reached out to the cop that killed my dad, but the day I graduated from basic training for law enforcement, I contacted him and said thank you. So yeah, when I was 16, I was on my own. I emancipated myself. We had a house paid off in Long Beach, Washington, which is it's a beach town. So I went there when I was 16. Family kind of turned their back on me. And so I just did my own thing, graduated high school. And, when I was 18 years old, I was actually a firefighter intern, and they paid for my college, and I worked, full time as a firefighter EMT. And what they did was paid me like $500 a month plus paid for my college.
Nice.
After that, I joined the Coast Guard Reserve, which I was in for 10 years. I worked, after the EMT thing, firefighter EMT thing, I went to a hospital. I was an ER tech for about 2.5 years. And then I got my first police job in Seattle. And in Seattle at UW, University of Washington Police Department, I was there for a year. I got the heck out of there. It was boring. Seattle's horrible. I feel for the cops that work in Seattle because it's literally horrible. There's no support. The admin will never have your back, and it's just a miserable place. I'd never live in Seattle either. It's horrible. It's disgusting. You'll see if you go downtown. It's needles everywhere, literally homeless people everywhere. It's disgusting. Mm-hmm. So yeah, and then I went to Federal Way, which is we call it Felony Way. It's a pretty bad place, and that's, I really experienced real police work. It was hard. Everybody, there's a lot of drugs, there's a lot of crack, there's a lot of cocaine, there's a lot of bad drugs there. And in 2017, I experienced my first OIS. Mm-hmm. The guy died. He shot at us. And that was an experience. Got to do that. Back to work 6 days later, and was there for another year. And then I was like, I want to go back to my hometownish, where all my family's from. So I moved up north or south a little bit to a county agency. Mm-hmm. I was there for about 6 months until I got Arlo. 6 months being at the department, I got the canine position. We had 4 canines at the time. Best job ever. Me and Arlo hit it off, obviously. Arlo was a super good dog. I think he was 18 for 21 for finding people for the first year. Bit a bunch of people. And, in January, was when he, got hurt. Still can't talk about the actual.
Yeah, no, that we get it.
Totally understandable. It's still under investigation, but I can tell you what the newspaper says.
Yeah.
The media said, Pursuit ended up being someone that we were looking for, but we didn't know it yet because the charges hadn't came out yet. He was wanted for a bunch of sex crimes against children. Mm-hmm. We didn't know that wasn't the reason we were pursuing. Was speeding, but he told the detectives that he wanted to die. He was going to die that night. Mm-hmm. And so when we pulled up, he finally stopped in the middle of the freeway. Freeway stopped by state patrol. He got out with a gun. Before that, we didn't know he had a gun. Arlo was sent. There was exchange of fire, and Arlo got shot twice. Through and through in the back of the leg, and one was in his shoulder, which ended up hitting his spine, shattering his spine in a couple places. He was down for about 5 minutes until we could get to him. Obviously the suspect was down as well. So we couldn't get to Arlo right away, and Arlo actually low crawled about 50 yards to us and then passed out. We grabbed him and went to emergency vet right away, and then he ended up getting transported by our fire department about 5 hours away to OCSU in an ambulance, in the fire department ambulance. So, the lieutenant, one of the lieutenants that's close to us, volunteered, and a battalion chief volunteered to drive him down there, down to OCSU, which is one of the main teaching hospitals in Oregon. He had a 12-hour surgery. I think he had like a 20% of making the surgery because they tore him up. They split him from his chin all the way down to his stomach, opened his chest up. But that asshole fights. The next day I finally got to see him, and he was walking, obviously a struggle, but that's where we got, our, people started really enjoying these contents because we're so open. I brought them with us. It was the hardest part of my life I've ever, I wouldn't say ever, but it was a hard part of my life but I still, and I wasn't there to get views. I wasn't there, but I felt people needed to see what it's really like to see something like that. It's hard. I didn't show them everything, but I showed them our life. They saw every part of it. They saw his first footsteps, seeing me. They saw him gradually getting better. They saw him, from no fur to being full fur. And that's me just showing them how much I appreciate them and how much they are truly part of our family and part of our life. And that here he is. And then now we continue to do that though. So we do that kind of in a local, I now work with the state of Washington Department of Health, as their, first responder task force for suicide prevention. And, I work with this nonprofit, which is called Leaving the Sidelines, which is, they work with the NFL and stuff. And, I work with them for, suicide prevention and stuff like that. So yeah, that's kind of part of my life. A lot of shit, but, I think that's what makes you a stronger person. And if people need to realize that it is okay to ask for help. It is okay to, put the, kind of just.
It's okay to start the conversation.
Yeah. And show vulnerability, because if you don't, you're not going to let people in.
I'm going to challenge that saying, show the vulnerability. If you can even call it that.
No, yeah, and I get where you're coming from when you say vulnerability, because it is, because as first responders, police, fire, military, you feel like you have to have this front of being strong all the time. And it's not saying you have to, but it's a feeling that you have to show that.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying it's right. I'm not saying that it's correct, but we kind of have, that's why law enforcement, no one ever asks for help. I won't say never, but most of the time people don't ask for help when help is needed. And because they don't want to show that they're vulnerable. And I think that's where I was like, I don't want to be put out there and be like shown as weak. Not saying I am, but that's the feeling, I guess, because we have to be these macho guys or feeling to be these macho guys and being the protectors and doing all these things that you don't feel like it's okay to kind of show the actual real us and show what we're actually feeling. We don't want to talk about feelings and briefing.
No. See, schisms? No. Nobody actually. Schisms are a great idea. Do they work? Debatable. But we're going to get into all that. I am actually, and I appreciate you sharing your story, Tyler. You kind of blasted through your childhood a little bit fairly quickly. It took you about 3 to 5 minutes to tell us about your childhood and your life, and then you went into the job with Arlo and what you went through with the job. But I'm gonna take it back to your childhood, because I have a feeling let's be honest, most of who we become later on in life is developed when we're young, right? It's developed when we're most impressionable. There's a theory out there that your morality and your ethics are actually pretty set in stone by the age of 5, 6, 7, depending on what you went through in life and what you've seen and what you're exposed to. The younger as you go on, you can still be impressioned upon, but about 5 or 6, your morality is pretty much almost with extenuating circumstances to the side. You're pretty much almost. You're going to be that kind of person as you get older, right? That little 5-year-old you is your morality, your innocent self, so to speak.
Okay.
And it's a theory. It's not, and the reason why I want to take it back to your childhood is, you grew up and you said your parents divorced prior to, your mother being diagnosed with cancer. But as you were growing up, did you have any siblings?
No sibling. Only child.
You're the only child. Okay, so that makes it a little bit more difficult, doesn't it, when you're going through something and now you're literally going through this experience with the family and everything else on your own as a child. You don't have anybody else you can talk to that you can go to the room and be like, oh, mom's really sick, dad's really upset, mom's really upset. There's not really that. See, I grew up with siblings where I was able to like sit with my sister. She was only 2 years younger than me. I was able to sit with her and be like, yeah, everything. This is going on, that's going on, and I can talk to her a little bit, even though it's literally two kids trying to understand life. Not the most healthy thing to do. I understand that now, but it was an outlet. Yep. So when you were growing up until you found out your mother was diagnosed with cancer, did you kind of understand what that meant when she was diagnosed? And then when you did understand it, how did that kind of make you feel? How did that affect you as a child?
Yeah, I think every, at that age, I can't remember exactly my age when she was diagnosed, but I think at that age, you know what cancer is. You don't know exactly what it is scientifically, but you know that it's not good, that you can die from it. Yeah, I think when I learned, it wasn't a huge shock. It was like, oh wow, mom has cancer. When do you get better, kind of thing. And I think that's just being young. You don't really, I don't know if they really had that talk that this is bad, because it was stage 4, it had already gone throughout her whole body. So I don't think I took it as a shock until they had the conversation. They sat me down, and I remember this conversation with my mom and dad, them telling me that she's going to stop chemo, because the doctor's saying it's not working anymore, and that she had about 6 months to live. And the very next day she died.
How did that affect you? I mean, obviously, being retrospective, right, we can really analyze how it made us feel.
Yeah.
But at the time, when you hear that, and then you go through that experience, as a young child, so you said you were 12 years old, just about that time, how did that affect you, man? Did you become, because we hear a lot of different stories, right? We hear about the kid who lost a parent that becomes extremely rebellious. We hear about the kid that becomes completely numb to the world. We hear about the kid that is accepting and is sad, but is pretty much okay. There's all these different reactions to that. So I guess I'm kind of curious as to what yours was.
Honestly, yeah, I was sad. I cried. It was hard, but I've always had this, I guess, way of able to coping with things and not really affecting my life. Everything that I've been through, I've never had any kind of depression. I never had any kind of anything kind of just, and it could have been, I just put it away forever. It just never came out. But I got over it. I got past it and I moved on.
It says something about you that you're open to the idea that maybe you did push it back. Yeah. And it's actually not too uncommon for children, right? Children, when you're younger, you're kids. You don't want to think the world is always going to be this horrible thing. And so you're like, you know what? It was a bad thing. But I have this other thing. I still have my friends. I still have football, whatever you're doing. I can still go play. I can still, you still have those happy moments. Every now and then you're reminded that, something happened and you get sad, but you realize, hey, it's not happening now. But it does say something about your character that you're able to admit that maybe you did push it back a little bit. Mm-hmm. Maybe you didn't actually, I don't know, process it the way that you could process it now as an adult, right? As a child, there's no way we can actually process it like we do now as adults.
Yeah.
And I guess my question to you is, do you think that maybe you still need to process something like that? Do you feel you should?
100%. I never went to therapy. I should have gone to therapy. And it's something I'm still wanting to do. I think it's just taking those steps. I'm actually doing it. Yeah, I still think it affects me to this day, but I think it has made me stronger, and I think it has made me, mentally stronger. But I think it's also done a lot of negative things on me, with relationships and being open and stuff like that. I think, I had a lot of hatred, especially after my dad died. When I was just by myself, I was by myself most of my life, and I had friends and stuff like that. But I think being by yourself, not having that escape of going to mom and dad, being in a tough situation. Let's say I needed money or just even just talking, just having that support, having that kind of guidance really kind of hurt me in the long run. But it's also made me stronger. I've never been, I've always hustled. I've never had a point in my life where I needed, needed money, I've always just kind of skimmed by and never been in a situation where I was in dire need or homeless or anything like that. And, I think that's just, the hustle of life. And you just kind of have to keep going, keep pushing forward and don't look back.
You're taking me into another part of your life that I actually wanted to talk about a little bit as well, is when your father, right? You started noticing your father was having a really hard time with this.
Yep.
And from your story, it sounds like, yeah, you cried, you were sad, but you were able to kind of move on. Even as a young child, you're able to move on. But as you're actually kind of moving on, you're seeing your dad slip back. You're seeing him fall. Yeah. How did that affect you as a child? Like, now, when I hear that, right, just giving you an outside perspective, when I hear that, I'm thinking, oh man, here's a child that has to be the parent now.
Yep.
Here's a child that, am I somewhat close to that?
Yeah, 100%. He beat me. He had alcohol issues after he retired. He was a great dad through my childhood until then. And that's at that point, when we moved away from Portland to Long Beach, because he retired and he was abusive. He drank. At that point, I kind of I let him go in my mind. He wasn't my dad anymore. And that's at that point I started being on my own a lot more. I didn't have any rules. He was out doing stuff. I didn't know what he was doing, and I just kind of did my own thing.
How did that affect you? I mean, obviously, right? You've already kind of told us you kind of were a little bit bitter at the fact that you didn't have that parental figure, right? Because as kids, when we're growing up, when something happens, when something hard happens, we go to our parents, and they're supposed to at least give comfort.
Yeah,
hey, it's going to be okay. We're here. You're always going to have a home. You're always going to have us. We're here, right?
I don't think it affected me really a whole lot at that time. At the time, I was still a teenager. I was doing my own thing. What teenager wouldn't want to be doing their own thing anyway? But, I didn't see the effects on it yet because I was just kind of like, wow, this is cool. I get to do whatever I want now.
When you did get that sense of, I don't know, you can call it freedom, sense of being on your own, sense of, there's a lot of different ways that you can look at it, right? For me, if I was close to my parents and then all of a sudden it was by myself, maybe loneliness, maybe a sense of freedom, especially being a teenager. I don't have to ask mom and dad to do anything anymore and stuff like that. But what I at the time when your father passed away, I don't know the circumstances. We don't have to divulge into that. But when he did, what kind of went through your head at that point?
With that, I knew it was coming. I think I knew he was either going to leave or something was going to happen where he'd just be gone because, I was never close with him. He was always working in my childhood. He was always gone. We never really had a close relationship. So, and again, it really didn't affect me when he died. I was sad, of course, but I was already on my own pretty much. I was already doing my thing. I was already paying for everything. And so all I knew, only thing that really changed was now I was by myself in the house. I had my own house at, 16 years old.
How did you take that experience on being on your own? You said you had no family, no extended family reached out. You emancipated yourself at the age of 16. And 2 more years, you're technically an adult. You can actually work at the age of 16. So you can drive at the age of 16. So really, you could, with the right mindset, take care of yourself at the age of 16. But now, also at the same time, I remember what it was like being a 16-year-old in high school, wanting to go out whenever I wanted to, but couldn't because I had parents that set rules and boundaries. You didn't have that, right? You were setting your own rules and boundaries. Did you ever get in trouble? And if you didn't, how did you maintain that mindset to not allow the situation to allow you to have this idea that fuck it, because I can do whatever the hell I want? Because let's be honest, we hear those stories all the time of these kids that lose their parents at a fairly young age, teenage, and then they become something less than in society.
Yeah, so I think after my family kind of turned their back on me, I just kind of like, well, I can't fuck up now. Like I wanted to prove to them that, prove to everybody that a kid that lost their parents at 16, and this is honest, this is my mindset then, that I want to be the most successful person I can be. And I didn't quite know what I wanted to do yet, but I knew that I had to finish high school and I can figure it out. I had a lot of ideas what I wanted to do from, especially in Long Beach. I think my graduating class was like 45. So I had a lot of close friends. A lot of our classmates were close, and I never really got in trouble. Yeah, I drank in high school. Yeah, I had parties at my house, but did I really get in trouble? No. It helped that my uncle was a state patrol in that area, which is a very small area, so he definitely kept an eye on me. We didn't talk, but I know he kept an eye on me. A lot of the cops there, actually the cop that came and told me my dad was passed away, we kept a really good relationship. I could always go to his house if I needed to. But yeah, I just kept moving forward. Again, I keep saying, just, put everything behind and keep moving forward. Because if, I didn't have any outlet to talk to anybody. Mm-hmm. So I kind of just, I put it back and just wanted to be successful and didn't want to, go be homeless or do anything like that. So I just kept moving forward. And, I've always felt like in my life, because I work very hard in anything I do, that if I put my mind to it, I can get it. And that's how it's been since day one. I've never not been able to get something because I've worked so hard to get to where I want to be.
Right. What do you think it was that had your family kind of turned their back on you? I mean, your extended family.
No, we were never really close. So I don't know. I think once my mom died, my closest family was on my mom's side. Mm-hmm. And now we are a little bit closer. But I think once she died, my dad was kind of an asshole, big asshole. And so they kind of just kept their distance from him. And of course I was with him. So
it was by proxy that you kind of got shunned.
Yeah.
I got you.
And I didn't reach out. I was a kid. I didn't care at that point. I didn't realize how much family matters. Because it does. They do. And, but yeah.
And to hear you say that, man, is actually really cool that you're realizing that now. A lot of us sometimes will have this idea when we're kids of what a certain thing means and we stick with it, right? We don't allow ourselves to go back and process the emotions, the feelings that we went through as we were kids and kind of realize certain things and aspects, right? But you've been able to do that. You've been able to go back and be like, you know what? Yeah, I could have reached out too. I didn't. I was a kid.
100%.
But you're able to do that. Other kids might be like, yeah, no, they never reached out to me. They should have reached out to me. And they take no personal responsibility for the situation. And you're doing that now, which is huge. It says a lot about your maturity in analyzing and assessing your past, right? Which is huge when it comes to the whole mental health thing, which we're going to get into a little bit later. As you're finishing high school, you get into the fire department, which you should have sticked with.
Worst mistake in my life.
Lying sack of shit. You were a liar.
That was when I was really
they paid for you. They paid for you to go to school, man. Either that or you're just taking advantage of the fire department like cops usually do. Anyway.
I was at a low point, so I had to make a decision.
Oh my God. Whatever. No, like I said, you were just taking advantage of the fire department like cops usually do. When they don't want to take the drunk guy, they'll just call the EMS.
That's when, doing that really made me want to be a cop.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
I was like, oh man, those guys actually do the work. I want to do that.
Oh
you guys
my.
are having fun.
Oh, okay. Says the 18-year-old that took advantage. Got it. Well, what possessed you to go into that field of work, man? Like, did you have any type of family? Oh, you said you had an uncle that was the sheriff's department, but did you have any family in the fire department or any civil service other than just your uncle?
No civil service at all. And when I say uncle, he's just a really close family friend. Mm-hmm. He wasn't truly my uncle. He was someone that was always in our family and he just happened to work there. I don't know. I just knew I wanted to help people, honestly. And that's such a cliche answer of I just want to help people. But I truly appreciate and love, this is what I enjoy is being around people doing what I can of what my training has taught me to be able to make something different. And, you know, I was always very personable and being able to talk to people and kind of, you know, morphing how I am to fit them so they feel that they are, being taken care of. But yeah, I love it. I love the civil service. That's why I joined the military, you know, the fake military. And,
it is not fake military. But it's funny how many people actually don't understand that the Coast Guard is a branch of the military.
Yeah. We'll get into that in a little. I'll tell you my stories in the military.
Yeah, but okay, so you're going through the fire department.
Yeah, so I saw that opportunity. I didn't have money. I lived in a house that was paid off, so I knew I had to stay there. I didn't have rent. Neither of my parents had life insurance, so I didn't get any money. I got Social Security from my mom for it was like $1,000 a month. That's what I lived on. Paid bills, and I saw this opportunity. I was like, I want to try this out. I interviewed, did all this BS that actually there's really not much being a fighter. They pretty much handed it to anybody.
That's bullshit.
And no, it was a hard process. So, and as I got it. I got my firefighter 1, you know, the IFSAC or whatever it's called. And, you know, they put me through, you know, the first thing in college I did was my EMT. Mm-hmm. I ended up getting then later got my EMT intermediate. Did that for 2 years, and it was honestly the best time of my life. The first year was kind of shitty because they treated me like a grunt. I was a grunt for the 2 years, but for the first year they treated me like a probie, and
as they should have.
Yeah. But the last year was amazing. I was part of the crew. Even though I was an intern firefighter EMT, got paid $500 a month. You know, I did the firefighter stair climb with them. I worked out with them. I went to barbecues with them. I was part of their family, and I was on a shift. I was on the same shift each year, and that's when I learned, like, holy crap, this is a family. Holy crap, I want to be a professional firefighter. I love the structure and how big this family is. That I am from this city and I can go to this city and they don't care. You're welcome in their firehouse, and it is a total. And that's when I was like, oh, I want to be part of that. And then I got my senses right, and I became a cop. And
yeah, I love the family, love the family. I want to sit in a car by myself all the time.
Yeah, exactly. But and jokes aside, it's literally the same thing.
No, I get it.
I can go up to Everett or wherever you're at and go to the police station. It's like, what up? I'm a cop over here. What up, man? You want a patch? You want blah, blah, blah. What's going on? Have a seat, Captain Cop, you know. Oh, it's awesome.
I make that analogy all the time. You could put 500 different civil service members, be it military or first responders, in a room, not one of them knowing who the other one is. Give it 5 minutes, everyone's going to be talking. Everyone's going to have a story. Everyone's going to be shaking hands, you know, like, what's up? Where are you from? How you doing? You know, it's the idea of brotherhood and sisterhood in the civil service is just, it's uncomparable to anything else. It is a different sense of family.
And so after firefighting, the internship.
How long was that?
2 years.
Okay.
They paid for my associates. They paid for college and everything like that. So after that, they just didn't have a position. They had no opening. So I was like, crap, I had to figure out what I have to do. I'll join the military. And so I joined the Coast Guard. I was going to go full time. But at the same time, I was like, you know what? I just wanted to make this an extra step into my full-time career as being a cop. And I don't know when I got that transition, why I want to be a cop, but I went into the military seeing if I wanted to be a cop. And I went to do, you know, what we call, or the Navy calls MEMA, Master of Arms, or Maritime Enforcement, or MP, whatever you want to call it. So I went through that training through the Coast Guard as a reserve to see if that's what I want to do as a full-time career.
So that was your MOS, was an MP?
We call it ME. It's Maritime Enforcement, but yeah, it's the same thing.
Okay. And you don't really, you can't really pinpoint what it was that drove you to that?
I think it was just the interaction while as an intern firefighter, seeing the differences, seeing that and I wanted to try it out because I could have kept trying to be, I never applied as a professional firefighter, and so I kind of wanted to go this next step this year. It took a year to do all this to see if this is what I want to do. And it absolutely was. After the training I went through, I was like, yes, this is what I want to do. And so when I got back home from, basic and then tech school and stuff like that, I applied, got hired at, University of Washington Police.
Okay.
So at that time when I actually got hired, which was about 7 years ago, you couldn't get a job as a cop. It was so hard. At that time, there's hiring freezes. No one was getting hired. It was super hard to get a job. Like it was only one at a time, where now they can't fill positions. Every department has 10, 20 openings. And so I got hired on the first place that gave me an offer, which was University of Washington Police. And in Washington, every cop goes to the same basic training, same place. And, in my class, there's people from all over in Washington. It's all the same place. It's not, internal. And so did that for the first year and got the heck out of it. But yeah, it's going to the point where Coast Guard isn't military. It is. I deployed a few times. I went to Bahrain, in Middle East for 6 months. I was on it's called a PSU unit. It's a Port Security Unit, which is a deployable unit.
Mm-hmm.
I went to Cuba for a year, in Guantanamo Bay. I was there for a year.
You worked the Panama Canal?
No, I never went there. Just Guantanamo Bay. And, we do security on the prison. Just on a boat. So it is, we work with the Marines a lot. We had the Marine uniform. We didn't, a lot of people see the Coast Guard in their blues, all blue uniform, but it's changing. So I loved it.
You're retired from the military now, right?
Yep.
Okay. After retirement, you stick with the PD side, police department side of things, right? And you told a story where you kind of jumped between departments. What do you think it is, and why do you think it is that you constantly had to jump between departments? Now, we all have different reasons, right? Sometimes more money at another department. Sometimes it's the politics and administration. For you, it sounded like a little bit of the administration was just kind of.
No, I think it's Seattle. If anybody realizes how big city is, it's just not for me. You're not proactive. They don't want you to be in the community because you can get complaints. They want you to sit in your car, you respond to your calls, and that's it, and go to home. So I didn't like that. I like, I'm a very social person. I like to get out there. So I left just because Seattle's disgusting and I hated it. So I left the Federal Way, which is a bigger department and more, I guess, opportunities. And that's where I got my real police work experience. That's real policing. That's in the ghetto. You see some stuff, you deal with stuff, you get your real experience and see how things are done.
How long did it take for you, or how long did you stay? I guess there's different terms, as a beat cop, as a on the street cop, whatever. How long did you do that before moving on into something else? And when did you realize that you wanted to move on and to do something else? I
always wanted to be a beat cop. It's the best in the world. I did a couple things. I was on a proactive unit where we didn't respond to calls. We just wanted to be proactive, contact people and stuff like that. And that was cool. Really enjoyed that. I did that once a week with another cop. One of my good friends was my good friend. And we did that for a couple of years. And once a week we'd be a proactive unit and, the rest of the time be a cop. But once you get to a point in your career in law enforcement, you can do more. And you want, I guess, more challenges. Because at a point, you just feel like yes, it's different, but you're just doing the same thing. You're dealing with the same paperwork, you're doing the same thing. And for me, I was, you ask any department, I was one of the most proactive people. I got in the most pursuits. I got the most arrests. I did all these things. Because, you're only at work for 10 hours, might as well make it worth it.
Instead of like 48 hours like a firefighter or anything. But, whatever.
Yeah, I sleep half the time. But
that's not true. But okay.
So then I learned, I started working with the guys in K9. I was like, oh, this is cool. This is an extra tool that I can use to catch more guys. And I didn't realize how the relationship was between the dog and the handler and stuff like that. But all I saw it was like, oh, I can find everybody now. No one's getting away from me now.
That is so interesting that you say it like that. And I appreciate you being honest that you're saying it like that, because there's going to be other canine handlers and other canine officers that are going to hear your story and say, like, this guy got into it just to use the dog as a fucking tool. What a dick. Like,
yep, 100%.
But you know what? You're being honest. And to be 100% honest, as much as we do believe canines are a part of the fire department, and they are a member police department, excuse me, and they are a member of that police department. They are a sworn-in officer of the police department. They are technically a tool to be used in pursuits and, you know, in finding people and drug and all that other stuff. So they are technically a tool, but there's something more to it.
Yep.
So you see this, you're like, wow, hey, this is another tool. I can find more people. I can be better than what I already am by using this tool. You start getting into it. When did you start realizing that, okay, you know what, this canine is more than a tool here. This canine, there's a bond here. When did you start realizing that?
Well, so when I went to Thurston County, I moved departments, and I was a real cop at the sheriff's office. And I love the sheriff's office, and I'll never go back there. Like, if you see the difference, I think it's because, one, there's a lot of more, you have a mayor who kind of runs things, and what he wants, he gets, especially in Federal Way. You know, 1 week he'll want homeless gone, the next week he wants us to stop harassing homeless. Where in a sheriff's office, the sheriff is the boss man. Mm-hmm. Obviously, he has to talk to the bigger people, but he's the boss man, and usually sheriff's office tend to be kind of no bullshit kind of agencies. You just, you know. So I went to the sheriff's office. I worked with the canines every single day. I still didn't realize it, you know, the relationship between the dog and the handler. But once I applied, got the position, met Arlo the first day, I realized, holy shit, how am I going to send this dog to a bad guy? Because I do not want him to get hurt. This dog, and, you know, you work with this dog more than you see your family. You know, he comes home with you, he works with you, you're with him 24/7. And, people don't realize that relationship. Like, we talk to this dog in our car. Like, we like, honestly, like this animal, and I don't think every handler's like this, because there are a lot of handlers that do see the dog just as a tool. And it's gone away a lot, but it used to be where these dogs are the meanest, baddest things that there are. Can't be around other people, and they're just used to, you know, bite people. Mm-hmm. It has changed and evolved a lot. It's not like that anymore. We don't want that dog anymore. We want the dog that's true. And Arlo, and obviously I'm going to be a little biased, but Arlo is one of the best dogs for that. Like, literally, he loves kids. He loves people. All he wants is you to throw his ball. And I could go and bite someone and literally 1 minute later go to an elementary school, which we did a lot, and have kids jump all over him. He wouldn't care. And that just made my life so much easier, and like make it even harder, because that's when I realized, like, this dog has something. He's not an asshole. You don't have to, I can leave him off leash and he'd be fine. Mm-hmm. And that's when I realized, like, wow, this is going to be hard to be in a sticky situation. But because this dog knows nothing else except he has my dad's back. Your dad, I will protect you at all costs. So that relationship, not seeing that relationship until I got the actual dog, seeing like, wow, let's go for this ride and let's live it.
Right. I'm going to backtrack just a little bit. During your story of your past, when I asked you to kind of give us a story of your past and everything, you said a few years into your PD career, you had an OIS, officer involved shooting, and the suspect ended up, not making it.
Yep.
And I'm not going to assume one way or another. You're here, you're not in jail, so obviously it was a good shoot.
Yep.
But there's a couple of things here. One, you're the first officer that I've talked to that has been open about being involved in OIS. Yep. And you're the first canine officer that I've had on the show as well. So I love this dialogue that we're having because I'm ignorant, right? I'm Pete. I'm FD. You have a little bit, but I'm sure I can teach you some things, right? You're teaching me a lot now by being open and honest in your story and what you're telling me. And like I said, I like to pry, especially when I'm ignorant. And when I say ignorant, I mean it for the term ignorant, right? I'm not being ignorant on purpose. I'm ignorant because I am unknowledgeable in.
Yep.
But a few years prior, before you became canine, you said you're involved in an OIS. And
Correct.
I was hoping you would kind of bring it up so I didn't have to backtrack, but here we are. It's no big deal. What I want to ask is, obviously, I say obviously, but I would think obviously, like it would be similar to a house fire, knowing that there's a trapped victim inside and you have to put yourself, no matter what, you are going to be putting yourself in harm's way. I equate it to a firefight for a PD officer is like a literal firefight for a firefighter. We are going into the danger knowing we may or may not make it out.
Yeah, 100%.
That fire is the suspect, right?
Yeah, 100%. And I can see that. 100%. We're responding to a call where we know we can't make it, and it's one of the worst calls you get.
Exactly.
Mine was a guy pointing a gun at two teenagers, and I happened to arrive literally like 30 seconds. I was 30 seconds away when a call came out, and I arrived first and with somebody else, and it just happened to be there first, and the guy had a gun. So I'm not going to get into details on it, but
I'm not asking you to get into details.
No,
I guess what I'm asking is, I don't want you to relive the experience because I get it, right? It's similar to reliving the experience as a firefighter going into the fire and not being able to get the victim and or getting the victim, but they come out completely hurt. Even though you saved them, you're like, I can't believe I had to do that.
But I think we're all mentally prepared because we all trained for this. We all mentally trained for this. In my young career, they tell us to go through different situations in our head. So when we actually go through them, we'll do what we will be thinking. I took that to heart. Every situation, every call I'd go to, I'd relive it, and then I'd relive it if it went some different way or this way. And I'd think, what would I do? Well, I truly took that to heart because I did that with everything. And so I think, any, fire department or PD, we train these situations, not just physically, but mentally. And so when we get that to them, we kind of know what to do, and we kind of, it's kind of all memory. And so, it's not as much of a shock when it happens.
Well, yeah, we train like we play, right? That's the
train
way
like you fight.
Train like you fight, train like you play, whatever the saying is. You want to train as realistic as possible, even if it is in your head. Here's the thing though, that only helps you when it comes to muscle memory and reaction, right? What it doesn't do is it doesn't prepare you for the after effects of that situation finally playing out. Because
yes,
I can guarantee you probably went through all the scenarios in your head, what you would have to do in a firefight, right? This is how I'm going to do. This is what I'm going to react. I'm going to make this shot. I'm going to get behind this cover. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. Whatever the thought process is, right? But how often did you take yourself after the scenario?
I would.
How is it going to make me feel? How am I going to react to this on a emotional level after everything's said and done?
I think I would, argue that because I did. I think some people do. We see these videos. I think not just mentally seeing, okay, this is how I'm going to feel. We talk about it in law enforcement. Because trained, this is what's going to, all the scientific BS, what's going to go through your mind and stuff like that. But I think you do take that in when you're going through those scenarios. You kind of get that little adrenaline of like, okay, that's how I'm going to feel. This is what's going to happen. Because I think we see these, especially with all this social media now out, you see all these cops go through these stuff, or, fire departments that lost somebody, or they lost a child, and some asshole put it on social media, their reaction. And I say asshole, I mean, because, come on guys, but at the same time, it does help others out. because they see what we go through, and you kind of see, oh shit, that guy's crying after he shot a kid. That kind of puts you in their space. Like, that's how I would feel if I did that. Mm-hmm. And so I think going through those kind of scenarios does help you, but I don't think it's obviously going to be the exact emotion you're going through. I didn't have a hard time with mine. I was fine. I was back to work 6 days later.
Right. Well, if I remember correctly, anytime there's an OIS, you have to take a certain amount of time for
it depends.
Pay time leave and stuff like that.
Comparable. And we won't get to my second shooting, but my first shooting was 6 days. My second shooting was like 45 days, and it's just differences in laws and counties and cities on how long you have to be out for.
So after your first OIS, it didn't really affect you on a mental level as much as, for me, I can't say one way or the other. There's a million different responses that I can say that, depending on the training I had, I could have been like, no, I know it was a good shoot. I'm fine with it. I saved my life and others. That guy is gone. I'm not. I'm still here. I can continue doing the job and continue living on. And
that's exactly how I felt, yeah.
Right. But there's also another part of me that's going, well, I might say that now, but knowing that I actually took another human being's life, I don't know exactly how this is going to make me feel. I can honestly say I don't know, because now as a firefighter, the closest thing that I can actually relate that to is having a savable patient, having a savable patient, doing everything I can possibly do, and then them still not making it.
Yeah.
That's the closest thing. Now, it's not intentional. I'm not doing it to protect myself. There's a whole litany of different emotions and things going through your head when that stuff happens. So there is no real actual comparable thing between FD and PD, but still, I mean, the idea of taking another human being's life, whether it was to protect yourself or not, you still took a life, right? And a lot of military personnel have the same type of thought process. They're thinking, yeah, I can take the shot. I'll do what I need to do. But then after the fact, they have this realization that, right, there is no longer a human being on this earth because of my actions, right? And I'm wondering if you ever process that kind of emotions going through it. And I get it's a hard topic and conversation to talk about, but I'm interested in your point of view, because there's going to be others that have different points of view. But we're going to call it what it is. There's another human being no longer on this earth because you had to do the job. You had to do to protect yourself and others. And I'm wondering how that...
Obviously, that went through my head. But I don't think it made my, I guess, mental recovery any harder.
But you did see that's a thing here. You said you didn't make your mental recovery any harder, which means there was a mental recovery.
Yeah, I think anybody who goes through any critical incident is going to have some kind of healing they have to do, because it's any critical incident.
Right.
It doesn't matter who you are. You're going to have to do some afterthought on it and make sure you're stable still. I don't care what it is. Any critical incident. I've had, I went, one of my first calls when I worked for the new department was CPR on I think it was a 2-week-old. And, it was obvious that the dad had beaten the kid. And I did CPR all the way to the hospital. And that was a critical incident. The kid died. And, I'd never been through that. But at the same time, you have to do mental recovery, because you're going to, FPD, you're going to see shit that you haven't even thought about. I never thought about doing CPR on a kid. And, obviously it helped me with my training in the past, but any incident, no matter what it is, you're going to have to do some mental recovery, even though you might not think you need it, even though you might not feel the repercussions now. You need to do some recovery, I guess some offensive recovery, to make sure you're okay and that you can keep moving on and you're not going to have any issues in the next, couple of years.
Right. I think from what I'm hearing, it sounds like a lot of your mental recovery was more, not necessarily on the outcome, but it was more for what the possible outcomes could have been.
Yeah, 100%. And I took my job seriously, and I knew I was going to be, especially being at where I worked, because it happened, 3-4 times a year, a cop would get in a shooting at my department.
Mm-hmm.
You know, our saying in briefing was, it's not if you're going to get in a shooting, it's when you're going to get in a shooting.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know,
I think if you work the job long enough,
depending where you're at, because there's people, I know a guy who's been in 8 shootings, but I know people that have a 30-year career that's never had a shooting in their life. It just depends where you work and the time and place. The guy that got in 8 shootings is a very proactive cop. He works in one of the worst counties in Washington. I mean, this guy will buy a gun because we get our guns taken away, and where he works, they can have their own gun. He buys 2 guns.
That way,
because he always has
prepared.
one, always ready when he gets in that next shooting. He has one ready to have on him.
Right. Well, and the gun gets taken away for forensics and everything else.
That's just normal. I mean,
that's normal protocol.
It's still a criminal investigation. We're still,
You guys,
it's still a crime. We have still made a crime. It's
correct.
It's still murder. It's still like a big deal.
Yeah, and
like,
and I'm glad we're jumping on this because I want people. So a lot of people don't understand, right? And it's the ignorance, right? It's the not understanding that people think that cops get in this involved shooting and they're not charged with anything. No, you're wrong. As soon as they get into a shooting and that suspect doesn't make it, they are actually charged. They are charged with murder.
Yeah, it's homicide, but it's different.
It's homicide. It's a little bit different because you're a peace officer, right? And you have certain,
but we still get treated, and we
Yeah.
don't get handcuffs and stuff like that. But it's still a criminal investigation. We still get taken back to the police department, get our shit taken, get stripped down to our underwear, get taken pictures, get swabbed, and we're still like. People don't realize we feel like we're criminals if you've never been in a situation like that, and
you still get interrogated.
Unfortunately,
you still get everything.
100%. We get a lawyer, we get our rights read to us. Like we are treated like anybody else. Yes, there are some differences, but I've been in plenty of calls where the same things happen to a civilian, where they've had to shoot somebody and kill somebody.
For their protection.
For their protection, they're treated just like we are. They're not, we don't throw them in handcuffs and stuff like that and treat them like we see the situation and we can investigate from there.
You go through the exact same investigation process. Every single shooting. If your firearm goes off, you are going to be treated under a criminal investigation.
We are still held responsible for what we do. That, in a shooting as a cop, that is one of the hardest, the scariest, the one time that I won't say one time, but one of the times that you will feel like you're a criminal, that you've done something wrong. And I think a lot of cops have a hard time dealing with that because of that reason. They're going to have a hard time regardless because you're still taking a life.
Right.
But right after you take that life, 15 minutes after, or however long it takes to keep that scene safe, you're treated like a criminal. And a lot of cops, a lot of young cops, or a lot of old cops that go through this, that's what kind of puts them over the end. Because now they're like, holy crap, now I'm a criminal, now I'm going to jail, now I did something wrong.
And all you did was your job.
Yeah.
And I want people to listen to this and hear this. Like, just because you see on the media there's a cop shooting and now the cop is off the job with no pay. Well, there's a reason why the cop's off the job with no pay because he's under.
No, you're not. There's most places you won't.
Not without pay, with pay. You're
still on leave with pay.
You're still on leave with pay, but the reason why you're on leave is because you're under an investigation. You're under a criminal investigation.
Yes.
So
until the PA, the prosecuting attorney says yay or nay that they're going to charge or not.
Exactly. And as soon as the charges are dropped, then you go back to work.
Yep. Well, and then there's a couple things most places make you do. They make you go see a psych doc, make sure they approve you coming back.
Yeah, there's a bunch of depending on the department, there's a bunch of red tape to get through and hoops to jump through for you to get back on the job. But there is something to say for people that don't realize that. They think that, a cop can shoot somebody and all of a sudden they're back at work. No, it does not work that way.
No.
It does not work that way. Please do not be ignorant in that. please understand that
they're
still liable.
And most places don't allow the agency you work at investigate it. It has to be a separate agency.
It's either IA or some separate.
Oh no,
agency.
there's always an IA. But they don't do the IA until another agency investigates the shooting. So there can't be any bias in the investigation of the shooting. So another agency has to come over, do the shooting, and then they do an internal. After that's cleared up and say you're clear and you're good to go, then they do an internal investigation, make sure you didn't do anything policy-wise. Because that's what IA isn't. They can do criminal IAs, but that's what the criminal investigation part. But so then they do an internal investigation to make sure there's no wrongdoing in your part in policy violation.
Going through all this, you alluded to how a lot of police officers going through the after effects, going through the investigation, going through all this stuff, it kind of pushes them over the edge. What would you say it is, and why would you say it is that happens, that it pushes them over the edge?
Because a lot of cops were goody two shoes. I mean, like we've never, to get into this career, you can't have really done anything wrong. So in our whole life, we've always followed the rules, followed laws. Not everybody. Obviously, I drank it in high school, but I'm talking about like actual crimes. Like, yes, it's a crime. But I'm just saying we've always been kind of follow the rules.
I like how you stopped yourself there. You're like, never mind. What I was saying was, let's just say you've had some sketchy behavior in the past.
Yeah, but everybody all follow the rules. We like to follow the laws. We believe in the laws.
Correct.
For a reason. And so when we get in that situation and feel like we now are a criminal, that's a very hard take on our not just our morale, but just kind of what we believe in.
Right. How did you believe it?
Again, I was at the department where a lot of shootings happen, so I've seen a lot of people go through it.
So you kind of understood the process.
I've had a lot of advice. I've had a lot of people talk to me about it. So I already kind of knew what kind of the steps were going to have to be taken. That was a briefing class we had a lot. This is what happens when you get in a shooting. This is what you do. This is what you say. This is who you talk to and stuff like that. So I knew I was well prepared for it, for the steps after that.
Well, I appreciate you kind of talking us through that and talking me through that, because like I said, I was ignorant, right? I'm not completely familiar on what's involved with an OIS, and I'm not completely familiar with how everybody takes an OIS. And you seem to have taken it in stride. You were prepared. You were mentally prepared. And I appreciate you kind of taking us through all that. Now, moving forward, we're going to go back into the canine area. Now, I know we can't talk about the specific shooting with the canine because it's still under investigation and everything. However, when you go through something like that, now you have this partner, Arlo, who ends up getting hurt. How did that affect you mentally? And we're going to start diving into a little bit of the mental health aspect of all this, because I see that there's a ring on your finger there too, and I want to kind of ask about the whole family aspect of it all as well, and how you think it may or may not have affected the family aspect. But first, take us through how that kind of made you feel on a mental level when your partner, Arlo, ended up getting hurt.
Oh, it was worse. It was horrible. I was, I knew I still had a job to do. I knew that I had, I was there. I was mentally there. The shooting portion, no effect again. Like, there's really very little effect on me. I knew what we did was right. I knew everything was correct. Now that my dog was injured and could die. Like, I've only had this dog for 2 years. Like, they didn't know if he was going to make it overnight. They didn't know if he was going to make it through surgery. Like, I think that was very hard for me, because he's just a dog, he's still, people have seen him. He's just a dog. He likes his toys. He likes to play. He likes to hang out with kids. And he wasn't just my work buddy. He wasn't just my canine. He wasn't just my tool. He was literally the best dog I've ever had, because I could go, just because of how social he was. Because I took advantage of him, meaning I took advantage of his attributes and used them as good as we could. We went to, middle school. We went to elementary schools. We used social media to show that these dogs are nice. There's so many people that man is like, no, I don't want to pet him. I'm scared of dogs. that I've transitioned. Like, no, he's not just a police dog. He's going to be your friend. He just wants you to throw the ball. And there's so many people I've had those kind of contacts with that now love Arlo because that's Arlo's the only dog they like, because I've got that relationship where I can, get Arlo out. People get to pet him and see, wow, this dog's really nice. How does he do this? Because Arlo can flip a switch. He can be the most playful dog in the world, but if Dad says a couple things, or Dad gets, he can hear Dad's voice getting kind of high pitched. He's like, oh, it's balls out of my mouth. I'm between Dad's legs. I'm going to do whatever Dad needs me to do. And that's what kind of hurt me the most. Like, that dog will die for me. That dog will take a bull for me. He did. And so that's what makes it hard for me, is because I put him in that situation. And I wouldn't have put him in that situation if I knew that the suspect had a gun. Because once a knife or gun's out, it's not a dog call. Mm-hmm. But we had no idea. There was no way of knowing that's what would have happened. A lot of people don't know is Arlo was shot by friendly fire. Arlo was shot by other officers. And I have no hard feelings on that.
It's part of the job whenever you put a dog between a suspect and...
We had a critical incident briefing, and I told them, it's like, a lot of people are going to have a hard time with this, and because they're not going to tell... I know who it was, but they're not going to tell the rest who it was, because I don't want the cop to know and feel that way. Mm-hmm. But I do know that Arlo and everybody was doing their job. It wasn't obviously the best resolution, but it was one of the best, because no officer got hurt. No human being got hurt. Yes, my best friend got shot, and he was through pain. He went through a lot of hell. And it's hard to say that that's what he's there for, because that's not what I believe. Mm-hmm. But he said he could have saved a human life. And in all fairness, that's what he's there for. Like, honestly, like, he's there so a human doesn't die. And a lot of people are going to have a hard time hearing that, because they believe dogs shouldn't be put in those situations. But they are. And that's what I think a lot of handlers have to get over, that fear of sending your dog and knowing that he might not come back.
To me, it sounds like it's a juggle, right? It's a hard balance to understand that though the dog is your friend, your family member, grows into a family member, really.
Yeah.
But also trying to comprehend and realize that they are also still a tool, so no human being is hurt. And
don't get me wrong. Again, I want to make this clear. It's like, dogs are not meant to go into weapon calls. They're not meant to go into where someone has a knife. They're not meant to go to someone. I'm not sending my dog. Like, if I know that there's a chance that a guy has a knife or a gun, and my dog, I'm not sending him in. There's no way. But there's no way of knowing if he does or not, unless there's a little bit of info saying there was. Like, if there's info, like the guy waved a gun out the window, there's no way in hell I would have sent Arlo. You just never can say yes or no on that. So
right, but that goes to saying, even for a police officer approaching any type of vehicle, right?
Yeah,
you never know whether that suspect's going to be armed or not, right? And it's the same.
Correct.
It's the same situation when you have a canine. You don't know, and that should be understood. But
there's a lot of people that don't understand that. There's a lot of people that don't believe canines should be working dogs. That police shouldn't have working dogs. And I get it. I get that they're ignorant on police, on why we need dogs and why dogs are used. And it's not their fault. They just don't know. And that was part of, I guess, a lot of the TikTok cops. And, I'll say Canine Merrick is one of my favorite TikTok cops for canines, because he's so well spoken and he knows so much, and that he can articulate why dogs are there to be used and how they're used. So Canine Merrick, if you're listening to this, anybody go follow him and watch him and explain, dog work, canine work. So I think, one, people are ignorant on why dogs are used. And two, they see dogs as their family lab or Pomeranian or whatever they have, that why would I send Fifi Fufu out to go bite a bad guy.
Well, let's be honest here. Dogs throughout human history have never been just pets.
No. If you look at history,
throughout human history, dogs were used. You have bloodhounds for tracking. You had...
we go back in history in the Egyptian world. I mean, they're protection dogs.
They're protection dogs. Jack Russell Terriers were used a lot on farms to get the rats and stuff out of the barns and everything. Dalmatians were actually used to keep the horses calm. That's why you saw a lot. Dalmatians were used when horse and carriage were a big thing. You would see people with Dalmatians. They were used to keep the horses calm.
Dogs truly want a job.
Yeah.
They truly want to work. And that's why a lot of people have these spaz dogs, because they want to work.
They want to do what they were bred for.
Yeah. Obedience is the best way. Anybody who has a dog should teach them obedience, because that is a job for them to do that. That'll take the most energy out of them, is obedience work. But yeah, people don't realize that a lot of these dogs are now kind of mutated and their DNA is all weird, and they're not truly have those, I guess, wild genes. They're not. They're kind of morphed into these home dogs where you get kind of these purebred Arlos, mom, dad, or pure German. He's got those lines where they've kept the same lines, but they do have that wild instinct. So they do have that aggression and stuff like that, and that's what we want. So yeah, people don't realize that these dogs, Arlo absolutely loves his job. Loved his job. Like that was his favorite thing. Like once I got in the shower, he was right next to me on the shower. Game's over. He's usually running around with the ball in his mouth. Nope. When Dad's in the shower, and he still does it to this day. If I get up in the shower, he is right next to me on the mat every single time. You can't tell him no. And because he thinks we're going to work. If I get a vest on, he's tail up, ready to go to work. Like he misses his job so much. These dogs want to do this. They love this and they want to keep doing it.
I really do appreciate you taking us through this and getting an insight on how canine handlers look at the job and how they look at their partner. I'm not even going to call them a tool. It is their partner. It's their friend. It becomes family. The dog becomes family. Arlo is your family. And it's really cool to hear how you looked at it, how it was explained on your end and by you, because I really do. I mean, like I said before, I'm a little bit ignorant to how all that works. And
no, you're a firefighter.
Yeah, you know what? We have arson dogs too, buddy. Calm your tits. All right, they're exposed to just as much bad shit. Maybe not firefight, but they are exposed to a lot of bad shit. Yeah, chemicals. We got to put special booties on their feet so they don't get burned.
I mean, you put your special booties on too.
Hey, when I take a nap, hell yeah.
You got your robe on. You got your special robe.
Got my special robe. Make sure, I can get dressed fast enough. Anyway, asshole. I really do appreciate you taking us through all that, man. I want to jump into a little bit of the mental health aspect of all this. You sound like you got your shit together, right? You sound like you've been through a couple of these OASs.
Fake it till you make it, right?
Yeah, well, that's usually, that's what we're taught to do.
Yeah.
However, is that the most healthiest thing to do? Probably not.
No, it's not. And yeah, you have to, and I wouldn't, and I think my follower, or how you say it, I say followers.
Yeah, my follower, we say, again, I want everybody to understand, when we say followers, it's just easier to say it that way. It's just easier to explain it that way, but know that when we say followers, we mean family, friends, people that are showing us support.
And I say thank you to them every single day. Without them, who knows where I'd be. If I didn't have that social media, that kind of way out, it would have been bad. But yeah, let's talk about mental health. Let's do this thing.
Yeah, well, I'm glad that you said that, because that's going to take us into it. At what point in time let me rephrase. Have you come to the realization that maybe the job has played an effect on your mental health?
So let me go into this first.
Go for it.
So my department really screwed me over this last year. Now I'm not going to get into it because I've got into it a lot. In the past few weeks, I've been in the headlines of the newspaper for the last, 3 weeks. They've really made my life a living hell, and that's why I left. Mm-hmm. They did a lot of shit to me that wasn't right. They've lied so many times, and I've called them out so many times on their lies. And they made they are very supportive at first. I love my department. I love the administration. They're amazing until this. A lot of people let some things go. There's a lot of people that lied to the media that have called them out and showed proof that they've lied. And at that point, I just made the decision they made it hard to even buy Arlo back. They were going to take them away. People don't realize how much shit me and Arlo went through after he got home. I slept downstairs on the floor for, I guess, an air mattress for, a month and a half with him every single day. I had to carry him outside 4 times a day to go to the bathroom. I hand fed him 3 times a day. He had about 20 different pills he had to take a day. There's days where he was hurting so bad that I had to do whatever I could to make him comfortable. I iced him. I used hot pads, every day for a month and a half. And that was really hard on my family because I took everything and it didn't matter anymore. The only thing that mattered was that dog and making sure he recovered. I didn't leave the house for, a month and a half. I sat down there. I was with him by his side and I didn't, people would come over. Hey, we can watch him for you. You can go. No, that's my dog. That's my responsibility. I wanted to make sure he was okay because I felt like if I left him, there could have been something else I could have done to make him more comfortable. And the first month and a half was literally me by his side, making sure everything was done correct. And so then realization started happening. Okay, I had to start getting ready to go back to work. Arlo's recovering really well. But my department just screwed me. They just made it a living hell. They hated the social media. We got invited to Ellen's show. We got invited to E! Tonight. We got invited to Entertainment Tonight. We got invited to a bunch of talk shows. We got invited to go to Germany. We got invited to go, South America. We got invited to go all these places. And my department hated it. They hated the fact that I was on social media now for some reason. After they got $76,000 in GoFundMe money for Arlo and only spent 10 of it. And that was a big thing. This was the latest issue was me calling them out for taking the money that they raised for Arlo and taking it, use it for their own good. And I called them out on it. And I actually got them after many articles in the newspaper to donate that money, because they don't pay for his recovery. They didn't pay for anything after he retired. All his medical bills that he still has, he didn't pay for. A nonprofit that I now work for, who's a humongous worldwide nonprofit, it's called Project Canine Hero. Mm-hmm. They pay, millions of dollars every year for dogs' care. It pays for his medical care now. Mm-hmm. And so I got them to donate that, I think there was like $56,000 left and donate to them. And so people don't realize what we went through. And they are now, I'm now posting about it because they made me sign a piece of paper saying I won't sue them and I won't talk bad about them, but they didn't sign it. So now I'm talking about them. So yeah, I don't remember the first question though. I just go on.
You're good, man. You can tell you're passionate about what's going on. And my question was, and in order you see it, you kind of answered it just by telling the story. My question was, has the job ever played an effect on your mental health?
So that's what going into it was like, yes. At that point, everything kind of got together to the point where from about February on, I've been the lowest I've ever been. I gained 40 pounds. I didn't care what I ate. I didn't care about working out anymore. I didn't do anything. I literally did nothing except play video games and make sure my dog's okay. And I was a horrible husband. I was a horrible, family guy. I didn't take care of the yard. And it took a lot. To the point where a lot of things happened. My spouse left for a while because I didn't have my shit together. I just fell in this hole, used this incident as an excuse to be lazy, be mentally horrible. I drank a lot. I was drinking, a fifth of vodka almost a night. And people don't realize that. People didn't see that. They saw me on social media and they saw these funny videos of Arlo and didn't see where I was mentally. And I did this for a few months. And I'm super open about it. People need to know that it's okay to ask. I didn't ask for help. I didn't even realize how bad I was when it was happening. I didn't realize that I was in this hole, that I needed help. I thought I was okay, that I was just had a couple months off that I was just going to go back to work. And I didn't realize the mental strain that actually just happened on me. It's for a few months. Like, it's crazy that it didn't just hit me. It kind of just gradually happened, and I just became the person I didn't want to be. I was an asshole. I blamed everybody else except myself. And I guess I got to the point where I was like, holy shit, I'm a piece of shit right now. And I need to stop. I need to be better. I need to use this following for good. I need to get out there and start doing something about it instead of complaining about it. And I got out of it, not with a lot of help. I did it on my own. Working out, I think still is the best thing that a lot of people can do, because it literally is that mental release that you can get.
It's that physical strain that your mind is feeling.
Yeah. And it's hard. And I got depressed. I was depressed, and I let alcohol and a lot of other things just, be that excuse for how I was. And,
what do you think it was that kind of gave you that aha moment? Well, okay, this is me. There's something fucking going on right now. Was it your spouse leaving? Was it?
Yeah.
And the reason why I ask, man, is, look, you're. I always say this to everybody. Look, your story is unique to you, right? Because it's your story. And there are certain little nuances that make it your story, and it's unique to you because you're the one going through it. However, that does not mean there aren't other people that have similar stories that can understand why you got to that place, right? My mental health has played a part into where I'm at. I'm going through a divorce right now. I have no animosity, no hate or anything from my ex. I love her to death. She's the mother of my children. It was my mental health that kind of set the ball in motion to us splitting, right? She's doing what's good for her. I respect that. I do not hold any animosity towards her at all, because I need to learn how to take care of me first, right?
Yeah.
And it wasn't until I had that, what I told you in September, that I started to realize, well, fuck, there is something wrong with me, right? It took that for me. It was like, there's something wrong with me. I need to fix this. I thought I had a handle on it. I didn't, obviously. And there's a lot of things that I needed to work on. So for you, your spouse leaving kind of was the kick in the nuts to be like, okay, I thought I was doing fine. Obviously I'm not, because everybody else in my life is telling me I'm this completely different person.
Yep.
I'm not who I was, and I didn't want to believe it. What steps did you take to get yourself, quote unquote, back on track?
Getting back to my normal routine, I think, is good for a lot of people. Being military, I just had a routine. And if I have a daily plan that I have to do, and get it done, stop being lazy, just get out of bed, take that shower, make your bed. I've always believed, if you at least make your bed once a day, at least you accomplished one thing today. And, I think just getting on a routine, working out, getting back to work, with Project Canine Hero. I'm now running for sheriff. So I felt like it's like, no, I can't, I need to step up, be a leader in my own self, not just for other people, but for myself. I need to lead myself into, accomplishment. And so it's just getting back into a routine, getting into a better mindset of being positive. I'm very positive on my social media. I don't cuss. I don't use explicit language. I try to show everything as a positive light. And so I need to see that within myself. So just being happy, I guess, just doing things that make me happy. Working on a yard, my grass is my baby. So like, I just, doing things like that and getting back into that normal life will really help me. It's not going to happen every day. It's not just a switch. It's not going to just happen the next day. Oh, I'm better. I'm ready to be this same person I am. No, it's not going to be a next day switch, but it's going to take you a while. It took me a while to get back to this, and you just have to just keep pushing. That's that drive you have within yourself. So you have to want it though, right? You have to want to be that better person. It's not going to be easy, and it might not it might not happen, but you still have to want and have that goal to do that.
I'm going to challenge your thinking here a little bit. I think that when you go through something like that, like a depressive episode, a depressive state of mind, and you aren't really used to it, right? And you finally come to the realization that, oh shit, there's something going on with me. I am depressed. When you're able to work yourself out of it, I don't think you work yourself out of it back to the person you were. I would challenge you thinking that you actually work yourself out of it into a better version of yourself than you were before.
Yeah, I'll agree with that.
And the reason I say that is now you have another quote unquote tool in the toolbox that if a similar situation were to come up later on in your life, now you have the tools and the understanding and the processes needed to not allow it to take you to that place again.
Yeah, you just have an experience now, yeah.
Right. Have you thought about seeking professional help on processing everything that you've been through? Not only the stuff on the job and what's going on and how to handle that stress, right? Because look, the job has its own stress. It does. But you mentioned your wife left because of the job stress, right? Well, obviously there was family stress that wasn't being addressed. And we forget sometimes that coming home from the job, your family doesn't understand an OIS stress. Your family doesn't understand doing CPR on a 2-month-old stress. But when you come home and they're bitching about the dishes, they're bitching about the lawn not being done, you're just like, fuck the dishes, fuck the lawn. I have to take care of my buddy here who was just shot. Like, what are you talking about? Yeah. Well, they don't understand that stress. And it's not really fair to them for you to expect them to understand it. But it's also not fair to you that they don't understand it either, right? So it's this really hard balance to find because we forget sometimes to switch it off. I heard this saying once and it stuck with me, is that civil service members, be it military or first responder, we're selective psychopaths, right? And the reason why we're selective psychopaths is because there's certain situations where we can turn on and off our empathy, right?
100%.
We can turn it on and off. I think what happens and when we start getting that home life stress is we're forgetting to turn it back on. That empathy is different at home than it is at work. Right?
100%. That's great response to that. Yeah, 100%.
So when the repercussions of not being able to turn that empathy back on, your wife taking a leave, me going through a divorce, and then trying to figure out how to mitigate and make that situation either better than what it was, or at least even just trying to get it back to what it was so you can work on making it better, I think is more than what we can do on our own. Personally, This is my personal opinion. Yeah. And though it might seem like, hey, I did this all on my own, things are starting to get better. Are they really better to the point that if the situation came up again, you were going to have the tools to, and when I say tools, the cognitive behavioral therapy, the thought process is to rely on, right? Because not all situations are going to be the same. When you have that cognitive behavioral therapy and you have therapy, you have somebody to talk to that's a professional that knows how the human mind works, especially with first responders. And I'm going to say that again, especially with first responders, because not all civilian therapists work well with civil service members. And I have a friend that said they went through like 14 different therapists. I went through like 3 different therapists. Like the first therapist I ever went to and started divulging the work-life stress, she started crying like 10, 15 minutes into the therapy session. I'm like, I looked at her, I was like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, I'm the one that's supposed to, I'm the one that's supposed to be crying here. I'm the one that's supposed to be like, blah. But I will give it to her. She was a good therapist in that she didn't try to keep me for the money or anything. She just said, look, you might be a little bit more than I can handle. We might need to find somebody else for you that can handle you. So she was a good therapist in that. She didn't try to fake it just to have that paycheck come in. Yeah. So that I'll give her that. But the reason why I'm saying all this is because I think, you're saying that you kind of figured this all out on your own, but I have I have a feeling, man, and I hope you don't take this offensively at all. This is just somebody that's been studying a lot, and when I say a lot, I mean a lot about mental health, especially within the civil service realm and first responder realm. I truly believe that having that professional to talk to give you the tools, to give you that different perspective, is not only going to help you process what you're trying to process now, but it'll help you process anything that might come up in the future.
No, 100%. I truly believe that. Yeah, I know I need to. It's actually just doing it. I've done it on my own for so long that I just I don't seek it. I've kind of, like you said, you have those extra tools. I've just always used these extra tools to kind of help my situation wherever I'm in, because I seem to always get into something. And, but yeah, I think you're correct. I think a lot more people should seek, professional help, and me included.
That goes for everybody, not just civil service members. Yep. But the reason why I'm so stuck on civil service members is because the numbers, you sound like a little bit of a numbers guy. The numbers say that, we're 10 times more likely to develop a mental health disease, and I call it a disease. I know there's other people out there that are calling it injury and other things like that, but it is a mental health disease, right? It's your brain firing in a way the majority of other people's brains do not fire, right? Which causes the depression, the anxiety, the PTSD, the mental anguish, all that other stuff. And it takes more than just being popped full of meds. It takes cognitive behavioral therapy and everything. But I challenge you to start seeking, because you had this saying, you said something earlier when you first found out about Canine, is that, look, there's this other tool that can help me catch more bad guys. Well, think of this as, hey, here's another tool to make sure my wife never leaves again. Yep. Or at least we can work through it. Or that I can spare myself and my family going through another situation like this with my mental health. Think of it as a tool to better the situation, to make it easier to beat that quote unquote suspect, right? Yeah. And I know it's uncomfortable to talk about, right? We talked about this a little bit earlier. You said a lot of people don't like sharing their story because they don't like sharing that vulnerability.
Correct.
And I said I was going to challenge you on that, because if you can call it a vulnerability. Now, first, before I go into it, I want to hear, why would you say vulnerability in the first place?
I'm not saying it is a vulnerability. I'm saying that's how we, I guess, perceive it as a vulnerability.
Why would you say that?
Because we don't like to show that we are weak. We don't like to show, a lot of first responders, military, fire, whatever. It's always this macho man kind of thinking, where we don't want to show that we are low or depressed, because that is a feeling of vulnerability. It feels like I am weaker than I usually am, or lesser than what I am. And that's just a feeling. I'm not saying it is a vulnerability. It's just a feeling that I am vulnerable.
Where do you think the idea of sharing that kind of emotion is considered weak? Where do you think that came from?
I have no idea where it would come from, but I think it's maybe probably just within any department. I mean, you see people making fun of people being depressed, it is one way of a lot of people kind of cope with things, is making fun of other people or making jokes on each other, and not showing that we are depressed, showing that we're fine after an instant. I think people don't realize that it's a boys' club or a women's club, or it's just the boys and girls. If there's women on your team, we're all cracking jokes on each other. We're all, it's a family. It's a family to an aspect that we want to always be okay. We always want to be shown that we are okay, that we're fine with whatever happened. I think it's changing. I think it's evolving as mental health and suicide awareness is being there's more perception on it, being that we are now taking care of each other a little bit better than we were. We're doing these trail to incident briefing, and it's okay to kind of show your feelings. But I think people who've been doing this a little bit longer than a couple of years remember what it's like when it does feel like a vulnerability of being not talking. We don't talk about feelings. We don't talk about how we feel after this incident. It's buck up or just get out. You don't want to be that guy. Don't be that guy.
Yeah, don't be that guy.
Don't be that guy. So I think it's just a kind of an old school way of thinking.
So we fall into the stigma.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's a lot better than it was.
It's getting better.
It's getting better. I've seen a lot of newer cops talk about their feeling. I'm like, what the fuck are you doing, dude? But at the same time, I'm more like, yeah, let's talk about our feelings. Like, let's kind of evolve from what we were. But a lot of these younger guys or girls are doing that. And they want to talk about their feelings and they want to be heard and ask for help. And that's good because we're giving them more resources. There's more, statewide resources that we can use. But it is a stigma of an old school way of not showing any kind of I say weakness, because that's just what I've always just been around.
So the reason why I said I wanted to challenge your thinking on the whole vulnerability thing is it's something that I've struggled with as well too, right? You don't want to show that there's something wrong because, like you said, we don't want to be attacked, right? Vulnerability means you're open to attack. Definition.
Yep.
Webster's definition, vulnerability is you are open to attack. And if we share our feelings about how we're feeling about a certain situation, how we're feeling about ourselves, where we're at mentally, then we feel like we're opening ourselves up to attack. Why do we feel like we're opening ourselves up to attack? Well, last I checked, when we're giving shit to friends and family, we're just giving shit to them. It's all playful. Yeah. But as soon as the conversation gets serious, it's like, oh shit, no, wait, there is something wrong. Hey man, what's going on? Hey girl, what's going on? Talk to me. How can I help you? Right? We forget that those people there, like, yeah, they were giving a shit, but they're giving a shit because they didn't think it was that serious. Once we expose that seriousness of the situation, the help actually comes, right? But we fall into this stigma, the idea that if we show how we're feeling about a certain situation, how it's making us feel, the hardship that we're going through, the how shitty we feel about ourselves, we feel like, well, now I'm giving ammo to the enemy, quote unquote, right? I'm allowing them. I'm opening up. I'm becoming vulnerable because I'm opening up something they can use against me.
Correct.
That is technically a false sense of vulnerability in that once you start talking about your quote unquote vulnerability, how can they use that against you when you already know you have it?
And again, I think you're 100% correct. I just think it's an old school stigma.
Right.
That people just, and even in the fire department.
Oh, it's in every in civil service realms. Yeah. I mean, just let's talk numbers. You're a numbers guy. Look, civil service members are 10 times more likely to develop a mental health disease in the line of work just for being in the job. We're killing ourselves 4 times more than the general public. Suicide. Now, all suicides are bad, but for every 1 suicide of the general public, there's 4 suicides in civil service, including military and first responders. Right? In 2019 alone, more firefighters died via suicide than they did in the line of duty. These are numbers that are not good. There is something to be said about the job that we were doing and the mental health gain and effect it's having on us, right? So when we talk about opening up the conversation and quote unquote allowing yourself to be vulnerable, I don't believe that. I don't believe it's allowing yourself to be vulnerable. What you're doing is you're not giving the power of what you're thinking is making you weak, keep you weak anymore, right? You're allowing what it is you think is making you weak. By starting to talk about it, you're taking away that power. You're taking away the power of what it's making you feel because now you're understanding it. Now you're processing it. Now if somebody tries to say, oh, I'm not going to listen to you, you're depressed, you'd be like, you know what, motherfucker? Yes, I am depressed. But guess what? I'm still here doing the job just as well, if not better than you. I can still run circles around you out on the damn training fields. I could shoot better than you. And I'm battling depression. And what? So the thing about starting to talk about it is you start the conversation because the more you talk about it, the easier it becomes. And the easier it becomes, the easier it is to overcome.
Correct.
So you are actually, by falling in line with the stigma, by not talking about it, you're not doing anything. You're not being strong. You're not. You're actually doing what everybody else is doing.
Yeah,
you're falling in line. You're falling in line. You're doing what everybody else is doing because what everybody else is doing is the easy thing to do. And I would even challenge that it's actually not all that easy because you're constantly trying to find things to put in front of what you have to deal with, right? You're constantly having to try to find that Band-Aid. You're constantly having to try to find something to keep you out of your mind. You're constantly having to come up with excuses. You're constantly having to prove to yourself that this is not affecting you. And that becomes exhausting. But once you start hitting it head on, once you start dealing with it head on and processing it and allowing yourself to know that these feelings and emotions and ideas in my head are normal, human beings have them, especially when they have depression, anxiety, PTSD. They are normal thoughts, normal feelings that happen when you are diagnosed with those things. Then you start realizing that you are not alone, that it is a normal process. It's a normal thing. So when you fight against the stigma, you're fighting. Right. And to fight, you have to have strength.
Yeah, I see that.
So you take away the quote unquote vulnerability by opening up, because now you're not going to allow it to affect you. So therefore it's no longer a vulnerability, because if somebody does use it against you, you can be like, and I just told you that. I just told you I'm dealing with this. Why are you bringing this up again? Like, you're trying to use it to make me look bad, but I already know I have it. I already know I'm dealing with it. So what are you doing here?
What's your point?
Yeah. What's your point? Like, I already know. I literally told you. So why are you bringing this up? Like, I understand that.
And I like that, I guess, that way of explaining it. And I think that'll definitely help a lot of people. So yeah, I do appreciate that. I appreciate what you said there.
Well, thank you. And don't get me wrong. Don't get it twisted. Just because I'm able to talk about it, just because it's, I've come up with this idea of how and what it means to me to start talking about the situations, it doesn't mean it's easy for me to do. I still struggle.
No, yeah. No, I think that way of explaining it needs to be, I guess, said more but I truly do believe it is getting a lot better. Susan, we just need more resources, honestly. If I had resources where I could call someone and be like, hey, can I have a couple therapy sessions? I don't know if I would have done it, but it would have been nice to have.
Let's talk about resources here real quick. You have a nonprofit that you're working with that helps with certain aspects with suicide prevention. Right. I have a nonprofit. It's the WhatMakesUsFire Nonprofit Foundation, where we're helping all civil service members, be it military or first responder, active, retired, and veteran, and our volunteers, because believe it or not, 80+% of North American firefighters are volunteer. Just putting that out there. Right. We're helping them get inpatient mental health treatment at no cost to them.
That's awesome.
We do not want finances to be a deciding factor on whether or not somebody goes and gets the help that they are seeking.
Yeah.
Not only
I think the stigma comes with that. I don't think, I think there's plenty of resources law enforcement has, or any civil service has, that they can get to. I know there was some in law enforcement where you can call. There's a lot of numbers you can call and get resources and stuff like that. I think it's still the stigma. And I'm not saying it's right. Still a stigma that we don't go after help.
No.
I think that's what we're battling right now in civil service, is that same stigma, that macho man mentality, that we don't ask for help, that we deal with our shit, we get over it and go to work. And so I think that's our biggest battle, that we can save a lot of these lives on saying it's okay to talk. It's okay to open it up. It's okay to contact anybody you need to get help, even if it's just a quick chat on the phone. One of my good friends died of suicide, and it needs to be shown more. Those stats that you said, we're 4 times likely to
kill ourselves. Let's call it what it is. Commit suicide. We're 4 times more likely to commit suicide. Let's call it what it is. We're 4 times more likely to kill ourselves. Period. Yeah, end of story.
And it needs to be said more. It needs to be shown. And a lot of these times we don't take it seriously. We don't take it seriously. I'm not saying us, but I'm saying a lot of us don't take it seriously. So the fact that we just take it as a joke and move on and don't think it's ever going to happen to us or our buddies, then it does.
And it does. And it's happening at an alarming rate.
Yeah.
It is. And the reason why we started the nonprofit, and like we also have a peer support network where you're going to have phone numbers that you can talk to another, if you're law enforcement, you're going to have another law enforcement person to talk to. If you're military, you're going to have somebody with the military to talk to. If you're with the general population, you're going to have somebody to talk to. We're creating a mentorship program because we hear about sponsors and sponsees for addicts and stuff. So we're still going to have that, but we're also going to have that for people with depression, PTSD, doesn't matter. We're also creating a motivational speaking program to where people can come listen to stories like yours and mine and others that are either going through or have gone through and have found success in dealing with their mental health, in hopes that telling their story allows them to then start their story.
Yeah, 100%.
And
I think that's what me and Arlo's goal is too. We have two stories. We have Arlo's story, and then we have my story. And I think that's what we want. What we're trying to do is, and we do it more on Instagram than on TikTok, but we try to show what we've been through, and that you can, just because we're, us from social media doesn't mean we don't go through these things. Or, it's not just about I know you don't like the name humanizing the badge, but it is kind of humanizing, we won't say humanizing. It's kind of relating to other people, because I recently posted something about what I went through and kind of how I was mentally on Instagram, and hundreds of messages came in saying, "Hey, I'm going through the same thing. Thank you for showing that you're going through the same thing, because that makes me know that it's normal and it's a common thing." And that's what I want to do, is continuing that, showing that, hey, you're not a weird one. There's a lot of people. It's very common that you feel this way. And now, how about we as a family, we deal with this together, and now you have another resource to contact. Because you need to talk to somebody out there.
Right. And that goes to the idea of what I told you earlier. It's that where you said you wanted to do something to relate, but here's the thing. You could have always related to anybody, because you're another human being on this earth just like anybody else.
Yeah, but this is a topic that you that, like you say, it's hard to talk about. A lot of people don't like talking about it.
They don't like talking about it.
When somebody that they see a lot on social media show that relation to you, I think it helps to kind of be out more spoken, because now you see it. Going through. I think a lot of people read the comments and be like, "Oh, look at that person going through. Oh, that person going. Oh, I'm going through this too. Let me write my story." And I want to hear people's stories. I want to hear what they have to say. I want to hear what they're going through and how we all can help each other. We can all give each other resources and tools that we can use. And that's what makes this community special. Everybody has a story, like you said, and everybody gets to say it, and it's a free for all.
Right. Their story is unique to them.
Yeah.
But in the grand scheme of things, in the generality of it all, there are a lot of people who can understand, because they've been through similar situations. Yeah. And being
why don't you like humanizing the badge? That's why.
Okay, well, the reason why I don't like the term humanizing the badge is because when we got that badge, when did it not make us human anymore?
But that's your perception.
I'm just saying. That's what. No, that's the question. That's the question. That's the question.
That's the perception of someone who has a badge.
No,
so you gotta think. Think back.
It's somebody who has a badge who is trying to allow people and let them know, not humanize it, to let them know there's no need to humanize the badge, because we were already human to begin with.
Correct, but that's coming from someone who has the badge. So, and that's how
I can understand that. I get your point.
That's how I feel. It's like, yes, we're all human, but now it's our job for all these communities that have always seen us as the law or the fire department, or they just see us, because they don't see us out of work. They've never seen us out of work.
So what you're saying is we have to remind them that we were human before we put the badge on?
Yeah, 100%. Because people don't see us out of work. They don't, until social media.
Right. So that point I can get. I get that point. I understand what you're saying there. I get that point. I totally get it. I guess it's frustrating that we would even have to remind people that it's like, think of any job. Think of any fucking job in the world. If you're a waiter, am I just going to say from now on, you are no longer, Tyler, the human being Now you're Tyler the waiter, and that's all you are to me.
So when did humanizing the badge come? Social media wasn't a thing when they started humanizing the badge.
No, it was
humanizing the badge was when cops were cops. There's cops on TV. You're a cop. You don't see them out of work. You don't see them in plain clothes. You don't see them with their families. You see them when you're in trouble, when you're in need, when you are scared, when you are miserable. That's the only time you see them. You see them as the badge. You see them as a person of authority or a person with some kind of authority. And now when they started humanizing the badge, they were reminding the public that we are just the same people as them. We are goofy. We are weird. We are going through depression. We have families and we like to go on vacation. And that's just reminding them, hey, we're human too.
We were human first. We were human first.
We're human just like you. We're just normal people like you that have families that are doing these things. Remember that when we go onto a call, we are just the same person as you. We just have a job that we get to help you.
Right. We're normal people doing an abnormal job.
So I think
that's all 100%
it is. Absolutely humanizing the badge is a huge thing. Because we always have to remind these communities that community outreach is humanizing the badge. Going out playing some basketball with some kids, which I did a lot and got my ass kicked. That's humanizing the badge. Social media is humanizing and showing that we are just normal people.
No, and I get the term is related to reminding people that we're just human beings. I get that.
And reminding,
I guess,
I get what you're saying, but I think it's also the way you say it, saying, hey, instead of saying humanizing the badge, saying reminding human badge holders are humans.
Yeah.
It sounds bad, but I think humanizing the badge, is just a different way of saying it. I get where you're saying that. Why believe in that message when we're already human?
Mm-hmm.
But I think that's
because
also
to me, I tie it to this idea that these people have that we were never human to begin with, or that we're we're supposed to be looked at them more than, or, I mean, how many times do you hear, thank you for being a hero, and you're like, wow, what a fucking title to live up to. That means I can never fail. That means I better not fucking screw up once. I better not screw up. I'm looked up as a hero. No, I'm a human. I make mistakes. I trip. I fall. I make mistakes.
We have to remind them that. And when they started that organization, it was when it really needed it. And then we continue, it started with 2 guys and now it's becoming this whole community, all law enforcement, all fire, all civil service, trying to prove that we are decent people. And when TikTok came, when I started TikTok, there wasn't very many cops. I can think of a handful, maybe.
Yeah, this is actually perfect because we're gonna roll into why you got into social media and everything, and then after that we'll start winding it down. But why did you get into the social media? When did you get on?
Early last year, like February last year.
Okay.
So it's been a little over a year. There wasn't very many cops, and if they were, they weren't very. They didn't have a large fan base. I think late last year is when cops started getting more popular on TikTok. And so when I started, I started because of Corona. I started for a lot of reasons. For one, Arlo already had an Instagram. We already had, 10, 20,000 on Instagram. So I like doing that. I like doing videos. I like doing silly stuff like that. So I was like, when TikTok came, I knew TikTok. But I was like, this is a stupid app. It's videos. There's no way I'm ever going to, I never did. I don't even have a Facebook. I don't do social media. Don't have a Snapchat. I don't have Facebook. I don't have any. I had an Instagram page for my dog. So I started it, during Corona. A lot of law enforcement agencies pretty much told their guys, don't do anything. Don't be proactive. We want you to sit in your car, respond to calls, wear a mask. And so, because we didn't really know what Corona was. We didn't know what was going on. I don't even think we were wearing masks yet. And so, pretty much it was pretty boring. Now a lot of people were calling the cops. A lot of, I think calls went down a lot. And so me and my buddy were like, let's do a video. Let's just see how it works. I got like 500,000 views the first time. And, I gained like 30,000 followers in one day. And so, because I was one of the only dogs on, I think Mattis was on, and he had his following because he was on my PD, as a host. and he was on, a couple shows like that. I think Merrick was on. He didn't have a whole lot of following. So I was not the first one, but I was one of the handful of the first ones to get on there. And I just kept doing it. I just thought of funny stuff. I kept doing stuff, and the department liked it at first. And I thought it was a great way of interacting because I saw the response to it. I saw people, especially locally, I saw the response to it, that people were like, we love this. We want to meet Arlo. So what better outreach is that? Especially during Corona. There is no outreach. We can't do our canine, we did a lot of canine demos. We did a lot of going out to the communities. We can't do that. It was Corona. Everything was shut down, or was about to be shut down, but nobody was allowed to talk to each other. So what better way but socially and on the internet? And we just grew from there. And it was the best decision of my life because I met so many friends. I met Vader last year, and he became he's literally my best friend. I go out there as much as I can, North Carolina, and we go to family vacations with each other. And without TikTok, that would have never happened. Same thing with Canine Haynes. We were going on a family vacation next year, and he came out to Washington, and we talked daily. And those guys, I could, when the incident with Arlo happened, without those two guys, I was the first person I called was Vader when it happened, and he's literally the first. I then, my spouse next, and without those guys, I would have been worse. But yeah, TikTok is social media, is that community outreach when we couldn't have done it without it. Without that outreach would have been really hard.
There's something to be said about the algorithm of this social media site, right? And, other social media sites have taken note. Instagram's actually getting ready to change their algorithm to be something similar to, the owner of TikTok even the owner of TikTok even put a video out there saying TikTok's kicking every other social media's ass right now when it comes to, actually doing something with the app.
Yeah.
And, Facebook is taking a hit as well. And I think it's because that algorithm is getting people in touch with like-minded people, right? It's allowing people to interact with other people, get different ideas, different perspectives, and putting them in touch with other people that not necessarily all think exactly the same, but just enough the same that a friendship can blossom from.
And I can't even believe like the amount of, followers of mine that have become friends with other followers.
Oh my God. Yeah. Yeah.
They've
yeah,
made
man.
there's so many relationships that have been made, because of this app with other people who follow other people, and they just meet each other, and then they're like, oh, let's talk. And they just become great friends.
It's insane. The community that this day and this age we're living in, it's crazy how the internet is brought in so many people together in a way that would have never been able to be possible.
TikTok became a huge app when it needed TikTok during Corona. I mean, it became that. It was obviously before that, but during Corona is when it really was needed. And it became a big help for a lot of people, in a way of just getting away for a couple of hours or an hour and watch some funny videos and just get away from the nonsense in the world. So,
going into your social media, man, taking it forward with what you're trying to do. I know you're working with some other nonprofits and everything like that, which is awesome. And I bet they're ecstatic to have someone like you and with your quote unquote clout on social media and your outreach that you can reach, right? But I would challenge you to start thinking about, because a lot of your stuff is Arlo, right? And it is what it is. But I would start maybe sharing, I know you said you're doing it on Instagram, but maybe even on TikTok, sharing a little bit more of the handler story as well. sharing what you're going through, allowing people to know that Arlo is a part of the story. He's not the whole story.
Yeah, and I get that. I've just always been, Instagram is kind of my way for me, and then TikTok is kind of Arlo, only because I always just try to spread a positive image or stories. But yeah, I think you're correct on that. And that's why I only post maybe once a week now. I don't post nearly enough anymore, and it's because, for one, I'm busy. Two, I need a break from social media for a while. I've gone on a lot of breaks, and it's getting to the point where I'll still do it. I just need to get back into it and figure out my next niche, I guess, my next thing that I do, with Arlo and stuff like that. But yeah,
I think your story can be a positive thing.
No,
even the bad things.
I knew when
your personal story.
I knew when I said that you were going to say something, but yes, it is. Yes, it's still positive, but I just gotta find a way of saying that in a way where it's still fun, but it's still something serious to talk about. So I just gotta have to find that way of communicating it through that app.
I got you.
I can't just type it out.
No, I got you.
I need to find a way. Yeah,
I got you. So we're gonna move forward, man. Look, Tyler, man, I appreciate everything you've shared up to this point. I appreciate the conversation you've had with me. I know I've kept you on for a little bit longer than expected. However, you were late. You were late to the scene, like all cops are. But it is what it is. I get it. Cops do their own thing. They have their own time. Whatever. But what you're running for sheriff.
Yep.
But where else are you going? What's your future plans? Give me your 5-year plan.
I have no idea.
No idea.
Kind of that's one of my things I'm figuring out now for myself. What do I want to do? What I want to continue doing? This sheriff bid is not till next year, so I still have a year until that election.
No, but it's still a lot of work.
It is a lot of work. A lot of shaking hands, a lot of events.
A lot of shaking babies and kissing hands. I mean,
that's right.
Kissing babies and shaking hands.
So it's a lot of nonprofit work. I have a lot of meetings with nonprofits and seeing what we can do to be better. Working with this Department of Health is going to be very cool. Being on their task force is going to be awesome. So it's just a lot of, I don't know. I don't know where I want to take this. I don't know. And I don't want, I think a lot of people, and I've heard this a lot, I think I'm this famous TikToker, and that's why I'm trying to be a social media influencer. It's not what I'm trying to do. Social media is not my career. It's not what I want to do. It's all just something that I have, something I can tell tell a story. Not particularly mine, but it's a platform that I have to talk to people, and I don't want to be an influencer. I'm not an influencer.
You are.
I'm just a person on an app telling a story of a dog, and I know where you're coming from, but at the same time, I don't want that to be a career. I don't want to be, I guess, when I say I'm not a social media influencer. I'm not a career or, this person that wants to take this as a job. It's not a job. I don't want ads. I don't, I've had hundreds of different people ask for, the sponsorship things. I don't accept any of them. Right. I don't want to make money on this. This isn't for me to make money. It's for me to have a platform to tell a story. Same with Instagram. I've never, I don't make money on Instagram. I make maybe a couple $100 on TikTok from views, but that's about it. And so, I'm not here to be a professional social media person, I guess.
Well, I think with what you have, Tyler, what you and Arlo have, is a chance to make a difference in whatever it is that you choose to make a difference in.
Yep. And
the reason why I say that is because you do have an influence on social media.
Yes, correct.
And with that influence, you are using it with helping with other nonprofits, and you're using it now by helping me, by coming on the show, and I really, really, really do appreciate that. It does not go unappreciated in any way, shape, or form. I really appreciate you coming on the show and sharing your story as Tyler, as a human being, first and foremost, man. Even if you didn't have, I've had people like Officer Kingery is planning on coming on the show. I've had Jason Patton. Today or tomorrow, Chris, lead singer of Trapped,
Yep.
is going to be on the podcast, and he's allowing us to, world premiere one of his songs. And, all these things are really great for us. But for me, the main mission is still getting the idea of killing the stigma that is talking about mental health, and that it does not need to be an uncomfortable conversation, because we're able to talk about all our other human emotions. Why can't we talk about this one? And that's the fight that I'm more concerned about anything else. And, you coming on the show and allowing me to pick your brain, pry a little bit, have a discussion with you, debate, and hear your story definitely helps in that mission. In that they're seeing you, Tyler, handler of Arlo. They're seeing somebody that is just another human being here that goes through the same life stresses and everything else. And I really do appreciate you sharing your story.
Yeah.
I appreciate you sharing Arlo's story. And I ask that, if you're looking for nonprofits to back or to help, we would love your support. I'm going to make this thing grow with or without the support. It's going to happen because I believe in it that much.
Yeah.
But the more hands make light work, so, if you have more questions about it later on down the road.
Yeah, definitely. Send me some info.
Yeah, I would love to help.
Yeah, 100%.
I'm going to start winding it down, man. Usually the way I end my episodes, I ask 3 questions. They can either spark another 15, 20-minute conversation or it could be 5 minutes. There's no right or wrong answers, except you're a cop, so all answers wrong. So
I'm surprised you haven't had your mid-afternoon nap yet.
Oh, dude, yeah, you're keeping me up. That's why I'm trying to end the damn episode.
I know.
My first question to you, Tyler, is say you had your own podcast, which isn't too far-fetched because you did have your own podcast before.
Yeah.
But your guest was you, Tyler, handler of K9 Arlo, social media influencer. What would have been one question you would have asked yourself and or piece of information you would have liked to share that maybe we didn't kind of hit on?
What's one question I would have... You hit a lot of questions.
I get this response a lot whenever I ask this question.
Yeah, that's a hard... You got to prepare us for this one.
No, man, no. The reason why I like asking it, on the spot is because it has you, one, you're going back to the whole conversation, you're evaluating everything we talked about. But when you're doing that, something's going to pop up that you're going to think is important enough for you to say.
That is a difficult question. What's one question I would have asked myself that we didn't ask today?
Or a piece of information you'd like to share that maybe we didn't talk about.
I don't know.
There's a lot of dead air. I'm gonna have to edit.
Yeah, I know. You're gonna have to edit this out. I don't know, honestly.
Is there some type of quote saying something to do with family, whatever, man? I'm trying to help you out here.
I know. The help we need.
Cops usually do.
You should go more into family. I guess I would have dug into family, and not just like the outside family or our home family. And when we briefly talked about our situations, and how does this affect kids? How does this affect how does it affect your spouse? Like what could we as a partnership work on with our spouses?
And what do you think that is then? That's a good question.
Because like you did touch base saying, and respectfully, they're ignorant on how we feel.
Mm-hmm.
But I've been in situations where my spouse, so I was about 5 minutes away when a call came out for active shooter.
Mm-hmm.
There was probably 20 calls saying there's men with rifles shooting people. I was I was technically the first person from our agency there, but it ended up being a shooting with the marshals. There's undercover marshals down a shooting.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously my spouse heard about it through some sort of social media, looked at my location. I was at the location.
Mm-hmm.
And apparently when it first came out, there was officers down. And so people don't realize what they do.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how would you feel if your ex or your child was at the mall and you heard there's an active shooter at the mall? and you look at their location, they're at the mall, and there's a bunch of people dead.
Right.
We don't look at it that way.
No, we do not.
And so that's what they feel like. That gives me the chills just thinking about it. Because you don't see how they're feeling on a daily basis. We need to go to work. We don't we don't know how they feel when a situation like that. They look at our location. They're at that location where there's a bunch of people dead.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think we, as a community, as the officers or firefighters, don't give them that respect on showing how, hey, we're sorry you feel it. Like, you don't give them that empathy on knowing how they feel when that call comes out, or when you go to a fire and there's a firefighter down and you're at that location. You don't realize how much strain it is on you.
I think one of the best ways, and probably the best way for any relationship or any partnership to actually work, is we all need to work on our communication.
And that's why my biggest thing was, any incident like that, I would always throw a text, I'm okay.
Right, communication.
Even though it doesn't make sense at the time, like, look at the phone, I'm okay, cool. I know you're okay. But then a few minutes later, they see that, oh shit, there's a shooting there, and there's people down. Oh, they're okay.
Okay.
I think just that quick, short text, I'm okay. Don't put any context in it, because I'm okay, is the best thing you can do.
Well, but that goes to what I just said, communication.
Yeah, communication, yeah.
Right? Working on communication, period. On both ends. Allowing yourself to be open and honest with where you're at mentally and physically, as well as your family doing the same for you. How are they feeling mentally? How are they feeling about the job? How are they handling the stress when you come home? Is there something that you can do about it?
We need it, because I think we forget about them a lot, and I think that's why there's such a high divorce rate in civil service, because we forget about how they feel and what they're going through, and I'm at fault just with this, because I loved my job, and I love doing what I did, and I really was like, why are you always worried? Why are you up? Like, I'm just doing my job, and I didn't realize how much strain of me just being kind of a prick about it puts on them, showing that I don't care when I do care, but I don't realize what, for one, they've never done the job, so they don't know what we're doing. Two, they just don't know. They just don't know when we're okay. And when we don't answer a text because we're either doing a CPR or battling a fire or, in a fight with somebody, then that's when they freak out. And that in my mind is like, holy crap. I kind of now think about it as like, what if they didn't answer and they're in a situation, I'm freaking out, my man, and I'm fucking hauling ass to where they're at. They can't do that.
Exactly.
So, and that's what's hard on marriages, is because they just get tired of the non-empathy of it. That we don't, acting like we don't care when we do, we just don't know how to, I guess. We know how to do it, we just don't do it.
I would say it's, like you said, we turn off the empathy because if we were constantly worried, how well would we do the job?
Exactly.
Right.
Weird. Yeah. I don't think
us, right?
Yeah.
And so we unconsciously expect the people in our lives, our family, to kind of think the way we're thinking about the situation.
Exactly. Right? Yep. And the thing is, it's not, we don't learn this instantly. We don't learn how to turn on and off. We gradually just get into this kind of almost like grumpy old man who's, I love my family. I love being around them. But at the same time, we start even losing that on and off switch. So on and off switch starts getting a little bit tighter and tighter and tighter, where it just is always off.
That's why communication needs to happen, so the balance is found. Yeah. There has to be a balance. There has to be a balance. And
switch fluid.
Well, the thing is I don't even think there should be a switch. I think that if you start talking about it and you open up the lines of communication, there doesn't have to be a switch.
There has to be a switch.
No, hear me out. Hear me out. The reason when you start talking about it and allow your spouse to understand, you don't have to be specific, but understand where you're at, how the thought process is working, and they do the same for you. When you come home, there is an understanding where if you are, say, in a mood, you don't necessarily have to flip that switch because they understand what's going on.
I get that.
And if there's understanding and a balance in that understanding on both ends, then they can be patient and you can be patient, knowing that sooner or later we're going to get back to that point. But right now the situation calls for it's not flipping the switch. It's allowing to process. It's allowing to process. All right. There's a difference between allowing yourself to process the situation, working through that,
and just flipping the
and
switch.
still feeling it, than just flipping the switch. Because if you just flip the switch, you don't process. You don't allow yourself to feel. You don't work through it.
I can meet in the middle on that.
Yeah. So when you flip the switch,
I can meet in the middle that yes, you have to process it. Maybe it's a little slow switch, but there is still a switch where we go to work where we are in a different mental place.
Right.
You know, when I put my uniform on, I flip a switch. And I am, but again, like where you said, I'm still empathetic because I still have to have some empathy for people. I still have to, but there's a lot of times that where you can't.
But do you flip the switch? Do you flip the switch so much that you don't even think about your family? Do you flip the switch so much that they don't even cross your mind? I would argue that you don't. That what happens is they just get put on the back burner. They're always a thought.
Yeah.
But all you did was make the situation that you're currently in the priority.
Yeah.
So you didn't necessarily flip the switch. All you did was you reprioritized what was important.
Yeah, I get that.
Right. So now when you come home, reprioritize what's important by communicating. That way you don't have to flip that switch, and it still allows you to process what you're going through with your spouse, with the people at home.
Oh, yeah. Well, I agree with that.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
So you quote unquote flipping the switch, like I understand, but you got to be very careful because if you flip a switch, you got to remember that at some point you're still going to have to process what it was that even had you have to flip the switches. It's
like one of those slider switches.
Yeah, you are a cop. I can tell you don't want to give up that switch term, but you don't like that I'm making sense. I get that. You don't like when a firefighter is actually being smarter than
usually all I hear is snoring. So.
But yeah, man, that's actually really good. And maybe next time later on down the road, I can have you back on and actually we can dive into this a little bit more. I've actually had family members' wives on the show as well. I've had some firefighter wives. I've had daughters. I've had sons on the show as well, kind of getting their perspectives, what it was they went through when they saw their significant other, their family member go through certain hard times of their life. And you know, it is fair to say that communication is, I personally think communication is the answer to not having to flip the switch, but allowing everybody to help in the process of processing what it is that we all go through.
We need help processing, and that's part of the relationship.
Right. And if you just flip a switch, you're never going to allow them to do that because you're not going to open yourself up to that processing with them.
Unless you have that slider switch, yeah.
Oh my God. Anyway, my second question to you, brother, is very simple. Do you have any questions for me? An open book, as long as it doesn't involve me sharing a story of someone else that I haven't had the permission to talk about. Yeah. I'm all. No,
again, I think this is a good, this was fun, and I appreciate you inviting me to the podcast. And I'll definitely be listening a lot more. I'm excited to hear some more people. What are you on? What socials are you on?
So the What Makes Us Fire is on all social media, right? We're on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter.
Where do you podcast out
of? So we are on iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Podcasts, Pandora, Spotify, Google Podcast, Stitcher, Buzzsprout, Anchor, YouTube. We're on all of them. We're on all of them.
You post YouTube?
Yes. So your episode will be on YouTube. Cool. If you go to YouTube, it's What Makes Us Fire space podcast. What Makes Us Fire is all one word on all social media sites. But yeah,
words are hard.
Yeah, words are hardest. But that's how we are. We're filed as with.
Is it just you on the podcast?
No, it's not just me. I have guests.
No, I know.
I'm the only host. Yes, I am the only host. Okay. Yes. I'm the only host of the podcast as well. Like I said, I started this in August with the idea of sharing stories. And what got me to actually start the podcast wasn't the mental health aspect of it. What it was is that I saw a story on the news where New York City firefighters were dragging people out of a burning building, and CCTV, the video footage showed them dragging these people out in the hallway, and they were getting freaking massacred by court of public opinion on, wow, why couldn't they have drug them out nicer? Why couldn't they have done this? I was just like, and the ignorance of not knowing how the job got done, just, oh man, it got to me. And I was just like, look, I'm going to start, I wanted to start telling our stories and letting people know that, we're human beings. Not everything is pretty. We make mistakes. When, while we appreciate the sentiment of being a hero, we also think of that as kind of a title that's kind of hard to live up to, because that means we can never fuck up. And if we fuck up, then it's blown way out of proportion than it needs to be. Now, do we have to have a certain mindset when we do the job? Do we have to act a certain way? Absolutely. Just like you do in any other job. If you're a service, if you're in the service industry, you have to be a good service member. It's the same thing in first responder realm. We have, when we put the uniform on, there is a certain, what's the term I'm looking for? There's a certain line that we have to live up to. But sometimes we slip and we make mistakes, and if that line doesn't get met, it doesn't say anything less about who we are and how we do the job. It just means we're having a bad day. It just means we're human. That's it. It just means we're human. And so I wanted to share that. And then, of course, it got into the mental health aspect once I started going through my mental health aspect. Sorry, I'm fucking boring you with your yawn.
I know.
Jesus. But yes, we are on all. Yeah, we are all on. We're on all the podcast hosting sites. And
I looked you up.
So.
Why are you the only host?
Why am I the only host?
Yeah, do you just talk to yourself? Or
No.
Only guests?
Always have guests. Okay. I always have guests. There's a couple of episodes, like the first episode was me kind of just letting people know who I was. Do not play a drinking game. If you hear the word on that first episode, you will be drunk within the first 2 minutes. I was so nervous. I had no idea what I was going to talk about. I had no idea how I was going to say it. I was nervous as. And it got better as I went on. I learned how to speak a little bit better without saying I got a little bit better as time goes on. There is one more episode. It was a 9/11 episode that I made last year on September 11th. Just gave my thoughts and feelings on it. But those are the only 2 episodes where I was just by myself, and they're only like 30-minute long episodes. All my other episodes are long episodes. I run it like Joe Rogan podcast, where we have a conversation. The conversation goes as long as it needs to go.
Yep.
And
I like it. That's what I like.
That's what I like too, because you learn a lot more and you hear a lot more of that person's thought process and how they truly feel about a certain situation.
I kind of have a spazzy thought process where I just I'll be talking about one thing and then just go to another thing and forget about the other things, so they never get back to it.
Well, yeah, ADHD does that to you. I do the same thing. I call those squirrel moments and or rabbit holes, and I love rabbit holes and squirrel moments because then you get a really good understanding of how a person thinks or feels about a certain situation. You get to really feel and hear the conviction of an idea when you allow a person to just try to explain it. Right.
Do you always wear a black shirt with a black background so you just look like a head?
Look like a floating head? Yeah, so my favorite colors are black, red, and white. They were always my favorite colors before I was even a firefighter. Before I was even a firefighter, they were always my favorite colors. That's probably why I became a firefighter. Blue and black are kind of cool, I guess. But red, white, and black are way better. Anyway.
Your robe?
Black. Yeah. It's black, yeah. Anyway. Last question, bro. You're on the What Makes Us Fire podcast, and obviously you're not a firefighter. You were, and then you went to the dark side for whatever reason. But don't think of it as what makes us quote unquote fire. The fire term is more of a feeling. It's more of a calling. It's what makes us choose to be who we are. What gives us that fire within us to be these civil service members, to do something for more than just us. Mm-hmm. What do you think it is inside civil service members, be it military or first responder, that has us make the decision to make the sacrifice, and it is a sacrifice, be it time, money, away from family, mental health? What is it within us that has us make that decision?
And I think it's a very hard question to answer.
Oh, it is.
Because it's hard to explain that feeling instead of just saying that cliche answer. Because, I don't know if you had it on your interview board, but every interview I've ever been in is like, why do you want to be a cop? Mm-hmm. That's a super hard question to answer. Mm-hmm. Because it is really hard to explain. It truly is. Certain people have that want and will to truly help people. Like, I truly like going to a situation and handling it and figuring it out and making it better. Like, it's fun to me. And not all situations are fun, of course, but it's a challenge. Every day is a challenge. And that's what I like about it. I like being challenged mentally, physically, and it's an interview question, and it's a hard question to answer.
Yeah, well, and the reason why I ask it, Ben, is because you know this as well as I do. The civil service realm is just as diverse as the general population, right? Because all of us we have different ideas, come from different backgrounds, different upbringings, different races, religions, colors, creeds, sexual orientations. They're literally just as diverse as the general public. However, we are not as chaotic as the general public is when it comes to those differences coming together. Right? The chaos isn't there because we have a common goal. What was it that is allowing us to forego those morals, those beliefs, to help people that might not even believe what we believe or feel the way we feel?
It's just what I think it goes back, like you said, to your childhood. Like, you get back to what your upbringing and on the different experiences you experience and how you perceive life, how you perceive other people. And it's a mental thing. It's something you have to have the mental strength to do it. And I guess just the want to do it. Like, you have to have the want to do this job, or you're not going to make it. You're just going to leave.
Would you say, and this is a theory I have, would you say that we have this, I won't call it an ability, but it is kind of this.
It is an ability.
Innate thing inside of us that allows us to break down all the barriers that are there, i.e. religion, color, creed,
you have to not care about that.
Political background, whatever, right? We have this innate ability to shed all those things that separate us, and we break it down to the human level of just us helping another human being.
It's having that mutual respect for another human to human respect, not caring what they believe in, what they do, what they like, anything about them except that mutual respect that they're a human being and that they needed us for a certain reason.
And
that's why.
And knowing that might be a sacrifice of your life, you have come to terms of that being okay with it. Even if that person would hate you, not even just for being a cop, but just hate you for your belief system.
I think the public has a very hard time seeing, like, why would he die for it? I think that's a very hard, and I would. Like, I think most of us would. Like, we put ourselves in a position that might happen. It happens all the time. And it's very hard for them to kind of figure out. And I think that's what's different about the civil service is that we figure that out. We've made terms with that, and we're willing to put that on the line because it's not just a job. It's not just a career. It's cliche, but it's a calling. It truly is. It truly is a calling. That's, there are people that aren't supposed to be in these positions, and they get either thrown out or go somewhere small or whatever. There are people that are meant to do this job that get it. But it truly is the people that do this job right, any job in civil service, do this job right for good moral reasons. It was a calling for them, and there's a reason they're doing this job. Because they have that mental aspect and mental will to do this job. You have to want to do this, or you're not going to make it. It's going to burn you out, and you're going to go through a lot of stuff.
Man, I appreciate that answer. I appreciate you being honest with that. And I want to say, with everything that we've talked about, Tyler, I want to say thank you for sharing all the stories. I wanted to say thank you for sharing Arlo's story and what you did for him and how that affected you and your family. I want to say thank you for sharing your history, your past as a child growing up. You know, a lot of times we're afraid of sharing those type of stories because they reveal something about us that we don't normally share with everybody.
Yep.
Especially strangers. And me and you were strangers before all this. And I think now we kind of know each other a little bit better. I'm going to be checking up on you. I'm going to make sure Arlo's still good, you know, and we've grown this friendship now just by having this conversation. And I respect you for that and for being open and honest and being willing to share your story in a way that you probably never shared before like this.
I'll probably follow you back then on
Oh, finally, right? Yeah, no shit, right? Yeah, man, I really do appreciate it. Before we sign off and before I do my little spiel when we sign off, where can everybody find you on your social media, where they can find your Canine Arlo and all that other stuff?
You can find me on official Canine Arlo on Instagram. And then TikTok is Canine Arlo. And then you can find me and Vader's company, Arlo Nation, which we never got into.
Well, go for it real quick. What's Arlo Nation real quick?
So Arlo Nation, you can see the hats. Arlo Nation is literally just, it's not a nonprofit, but we do, you know, every thing you buy, $1 goes to Canines of Valor, which is a nonprofit vest canines.
So you're a crowdfunder. You're a crowdfunding. What Arlo Nation's crowdfunding.
100%.
Okay, so it's a crowdfunding company. That's okay. That's good.
But we're trying to make products for canines, tugs, sleeves, everything like that, gear for canines at a lower cost for the departments that can afford them.
Awesome.
And so to be able to do that, we sold a lot of like hats, shirts. We just didn't have the money to buy, get these custom things built because it's just way too expensive. So to be able to do that, we had to sell merchandise, which we can still get hats and stuff, to be able to afford to make these things so we can get them to a lower cost for, I think we've donated, total 6,000-7,000 this year to, Canines of Valor.
That's awesome, man. So varlonation.com is where they can find some.
Yeah, varlonation.com. You can find us on TikTok and Instagram at varlonation. And it's just Vader and Arlo named together.
So varlonation.com. Y'all, What Makes Us Fire family, go check them out. Again, Tyler, thank you again. What Makes Us Fire family, remember, have fun, stay safe, show some love and peace out in the world. You never know who's going to need it. You never know if you're going to be the one to make the difference, and being that difference does feel good. Be the change you want to see in the world. Don't let the world dictate how you want to see that change happen. Don't get walked all over, just get better. And I've been saying this at the end of my shows a little bit more lately. Nothing in this life worth having is easy. Your mental health, finances. If you're going through struggle, know that that struggle is because later on, whatever comes out of it is worth having. Keep going. It's worth it in the end. Tyler, you want to say peace? You want to say bye?
Yeah, I appreciate every single one of you guys. I appreciate being invited to the podcast. This is going to be the first podcast I kind of brought everything in the air. Hopefully I'll definitely look for some clips on my socials if I can get some from them and post them and get people over to all these different podcasts so we can get people listening, some more followers on it.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Mr. Fire family, take it easy. Stay safe.
All right, everybody. That was Tyler, better known as Canine Arlo on his social media. I hope you guys enjoyed the show and enjoyed what he shared. He definitely showed a little bit of maturity in his thinking. He talked about doing a lot of things on his own, working through the things on his own, working through life on his own. And I hope that you guys learned something from that sometimes it's not always the best way to go about life. We're human beings. Human beings are social animals. We crave not necessarily attention, but we crave companionship. It doesn't have to be from a loved one, but it can be from a friend, from a canine. So just remember that. You don't have to do life alone. This is the part of the show where I say thank you for listening. Please follow the What Makes Us Fire podcast on all your social media sites with the tag at What Makes Us Fire via Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat, WhatsApp, you name it, we are there. Also, if you would like to email me, you can email me at whatmakesusfire@yahoo.com. I try to get to everybody's emails, but if I don't get to you back right away, trust me, I will get back to you. Also, What Makes Us Fire Nonprofit Foundation dedicated to helping our civil service members, be it military or first responder, active, retired, and veterans, and our volunteers get inpatient mental health treatment. The way we do that is to make sure finances are not a deciding factor on whether or not they go. Please visit whatmakesusfire.com. Check out what we got going on, and if you can, make a donation. The What Makes Us Fire podcast is a part of the nonprofit. So every donation that you make goes to our general fund and helping us grow the podcast, get our guests, and to put on events to help our civil service members. If you find yourself in a crisis situation right now and you need someone to talk to, What Makes Us Fire has found two resources that we strongly believe in. One that you've heard of before. The National Suicide Prevention Hotline is 100% free, confidential, and anonymous. Start the conversation. We shouldn't be losing each other to something that we can fight. The number is 1-800-273-8255. If making that phone call is not for you, that's okay. Go check out suicidepreventionlifeline.org. There you will find a multitude of resources where you can find a way to start that conversation for yourself. We are in no way, shape, or form sponsored by the National Suicide Prevention Hotline or suicidepreventionlifeline.org. Like I said before, these are just two very, very good resources that we believe in. What Makes Us Fire family? Thank you. Thank you for listening. Thank you for sharing. And thank you for being a part of this family. Thank you for having R6. We got yours. Much love to y'all. Stay safe. Peace.